My bad. Look, this live almost did not happen. Everything that tried to stop me from being great has tried to stop me from being great today. But we're here. I'm going to adjust this camera a tiny bit because I don't like how it looks right now. So y'all just have to be here while I work the logistics. Otherwise, it was gonna be another 5 or 10 minutes. So okay, yeah, everything for some reason nothing was trying to work right. But whatever, y'all can hear me, right? I'm gonna adjust my seat here a little bit. We're gonna tilt this over some so I can see my notes. Anyway, happy Wednesday, y'all. We almost, when I say this live almost didn't happen, it didn't happen. Look, my hair looking all discombobulated, looking wild, whatever. I ain't get to put no juices and berries in it, so this is the real me. All right. Anyway, by the way, I wore this shirt just for Blige Gal today. Blige Gal, this is just for you. I don't think she's on yet, but you know, she's here. Now don't worry, y'all. I already got my water and I got my tea and stuff, so I won't have to get up for nothing, God willing. All right. Let me get a few quick hellos in, and then we're gonna jump right into this because there's lots of things to cover. I don't know if we'll get through everything. The motto for tonight is, ladies and gentlemen, it is Black History Month. That's all I'm gonna say. There's been so much craziness. I'm just like, it's Black History Month. And you know what? I talked all that trash, and I have like 2 sets of notes on my counter. I just gotta grab. Give me a sec to go get it, and we're good. All right, right. This one. There we go. Exactly. Piece later. Okay. Anyway, so let me see who we saying hello to real quick. What up, Sonia Bethay, Wavy though. What up, Tia Moreland, Cynthia Tatamy. If I skip you, please don't take it personal. We just got to get started. Soul Flow, thank you. The podcast was great as usual. I'm glad you all enjoyed. I hated that it took so long for the last episode to come out, but life happens. So yeah, it only gets better with each episode. If y'all think what's been happening is crazy now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Like, this is real light work, right? Let's see. What up, Nadia? Zuma? I think I said that right. Avocado Queen, what up? I know she's gonna shake the table at some point in this comment section because that she's gonna come on here and be ready on every live. Let's see. Seeing the sunset. What up? Thanks for joining the book club. I saw you the other day. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start because I'm behind. So, Lord, it's been a week, y'all. It has been a week. But for quick announcements, the next book club session is going to be on March 25th. We are reading The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. We're going to be covering chapters 5 through 11. And if you did not get a chance to start, honestly, chapters 1 through 4 are not really cumbersome, so you can still catch up, which is why the next session is not for a whole month. So it gives everybody plenty of time to catch up if you want to participate, just like we did for the session on Monday. I'll have the link posted when it's time, and we'll just go from there. It's a good time. It's an open forum. I always appreciate everybody who participates and joins, so please enjoy that. Let me see what else. Oh, I got a few story times, but I'm only going to do one for now. Yeah, it's been a wild week. So tell me why. Somebody tried to break in my car and couldn't do it right. Like, they tried to like steal my car, but they couldn't do it right. So, this is the era of the TikTok challenge, the Kia boys, Honda snatchers. They've somehow found a way where they can steal cars, specifically Kias and Hondas, because of whatever happens with something with the USB little majigit thing, whatever you want to call it. Somehow folks are able to, pretty much hotwire a car, or at least the new one. So the new Kias, the new Hondas, right? That's been a thing for like the last 2 years, right? And so tons of folks that have Kias and Hondas have been getting their stuff snatched to the point where some insurance companies and stuff don't even want to deal with Kia and Hyundai. So now here's where it gets funny. I don't have a new car. My car is rather old, right? My car is a 2010, right? And I was going to continue to work that car until it fell apart because, hey, it was paid off. I ain't had a car note. So I have no problem driving my outdated vehicle because it gets me to where I need to go. And so because I don't drive very often because, I work from home most of the week and everything like that, my car kind of sits in my building's garage for sometimes days at a time. Because even where I live, I can walk to everything, right? All the food options are right there. Grocery stores like 2 blocks away or whatever. So I do a lot of walking, right? And then the only time I really drive is if I need to go to Virginia for something or if I need to go to Maryland. If it's in DC, I'm probably on the metro. Or if it's close enough, I'll just take an Uber, right? And so the last time I had driven my car was Monday of last week, not this past Monday, but the Monday before, right? And then, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm on site for work, but I take the train. Thursday, I was in New York for the day. And then, so Saturday, fast forward, I'm like, oh man, because when I tell y'all I've been busy, ain't enough hours in a day. I'd be tired. I'd be exhausted. I'm like fighting for my life right now. And I was like, you know what? Saturday, I'm going to treat myself. There's this burger spot I like in Arlington called Big Buns. I was like, I'm going to go to Big Buns and I'm going to just get me a nice burger because they got this nice burger called The Collaboration. That thing be hitting. And so I always get that and, with the fries and everything. And then they have this really dope, like, fruit punch thing I really, really like. So I was like, I'm going to drive to that. I'm going to be one of the people that just eat in the car. Like, I'm going to just sit in the car and park on top of the parking garage that just overlooks the city and just eat and be in peace for like an hour before I got to get back to the stuff I'm working on. And like, I get down to the car. Now I'm so delusional because I done just been in work mode and trying to put out 50,000 fires. I didn't even realize that the lock to my driver's door had been popped off. I didn't even see the lock on the floor looking at me. Like, I just and get on in the car and I get in and I'm like, why is all my stuff from the glove box in the seat? And I'm like, I don't remember doing that. Because mind you, they didn't bust no windows. They just popped the lock and got in. So I didn't notice anything right away. I'm like, wait a minute, why is I don't remember putting all this here. Well, maybe I did. And then sometimes my glove box will fall open because I got so much stuff in it, all kind of paperwork and crap. I was like, well, maybe it just fell in and all the papers just jetted and landed in the seat. I'm being real delusional here. And then I was like, wait a minute, why is my seat so far back? Because I don't sit up on the steering wheel, but I also don't sit way, way in the back where I'm like leaning way down here driving because I need to be able to see, right? And so I'm starting to think, well, I must just be tripping. Maybe I was in here trying to get something and I forgot. So then as I'm getting ready to start the car, because I still had a key, right? That's how old my car was. Ain't no automatic start button and none of that. You got to put the key in. And so when I get ready to put the key, you know how you like do stuff you don't even be looking? And I'm like, why can't I feel the key? So when I look, I realize like the key thing is way down by my knee. I'm like, Lord. So when they broke in, they had busted up everything under the steering wheel because that's where the USB thing is that they can do to hot wire the car. The thing is, they couldn't figure out how to do it. So my theory is these were some young kids because I was like, if you didn't know how to hot wire with the USB thing, if you were a real thief and you knew what you were doing, you would have known how to hot wire a Kia, right? So they didn't know how to do it the traditional way we use. I promise y'all I haven't done this before. I'm just saying, y'all know how people hot wire cars, right? And so they didn't know how to do it. So they busted up all that stuff under my steering wheel. My turn signal was on the floor. My key part is dangling down. All that stuff that's under the steering wheel is hanging. Like they just tore up my steering wheel. I'm surprised the airbag ain't hit them in the face. And like they could not figure out how to just traditionally wire a car, like how people wired cars or hot wired a car before this TikTok USB trend with the Hondas and the Kias. And so they just gave up and left and nicely closed the door, right? And so, man, it's been a process getting that squared away. So yeah, that was my week. I said, yay, it was a great surprise. And the thing is, I don't even know when they broke in the car. They could have broken that car as early as last Monday, but as late as that Saturday morning, right? It was a whole 6 days in between. And then the worst part, it happened in my building's garage. The one that, I'm not going to say how much I got to pay to park in there every day, but I was like, y'all charge us all this talking about security. Where the security at, right? Now I'm broken my car, trying to take my Kia. And this is how throwback I am. That car is so old, you can't even stream music in it, right? Like I did get the extension where you like plug it in and you can hook it to your phone. And now you can do like Spotify and stuff. I was still using an iPod Classic. Like, and what's so funny is my car has gotten broken into twice in the last like 2 years. In 23 years. In 2021, I was parked out. Look, I was having a wild weekend. You just stay the night. You know what I mean? And it was like, I really think what it was a homeless person that just slept in the car. Because when I walked up to the car, the guy that was homeless was folding up his blanket on my trunk. I'm like, wait a minute. I know this ain't what I think it is. And they just used the rock to bust the window. They didn't steal anything. But when they went in that time, I just knew they was going to take my iPod Classic. That iPod Classic was sitting right there untouched because nobody wants one. And then this time when they broke in, they had to move the iPod Classic to get to the wires and stuff. I was like, I guess I'm the last one using an iPod in 2024. I still stream, but you know, like when you're like a music head and you have all these remixes and B-sides and unreleased tracks that you cannot get on the streaming services and all the live playlists. So I'm always like back and forth with both. But man, I was like, damn, man, can't have nothing nice. So yeah, I'm still getting that all squared away. Amen for insurance, but okay. Last thing before I jump into our topics. if you get a chance to go, if they're in your town, I recommend going and seeing that Joe and Tamia's show. It was excellent. I needed that night. Such a great concert. Honestly, Tamia needs her own tour. If we're being honest, like I already knew Tamia was great, right? She's a favorite of mine, but to see it live and to see just the artistic excellence that exists with that woman. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times when you go to concerts, especially people that have challenging catalogs to sing, they're going to sing the house down, but sometimes they're going to dip and dodge a few notes. They might rearrange some stuff to make it easier on them. Tamia was hitting notes that weren't even on the album. Like she was way up here and down here and in this pocket and in that pocket. And it was just like, it was almost like she was singing like we were the audience. And if she had a good show, she would get a record deal. Like that's the way she was singing. That girl was singing her heart out, like tearing it up. It was so good. I was like, man, excellent show. And then Joe's one of my favorites, y'all know. I always wish I had like a nice pocket like his. I'm talking the vocal pocket. I'll take the money too, but especially after my car. But yeah, Joe was really good too. But it was like Tamia just excellent. I pleasantly surprised. I know they're in Baltimore again, I think next month. So if you're in Baltimore, you go to that show. I know they got a few other cities they're going to, but it was a really great show. If you like musicality and you like vocals and singing, right? And bands and just all of that. Great show. Check it out. All right. I've said a lot. I'm going to take a quick sip and then we're going to jump right into these final topics. All right. So, all right. So I was initially not even paying attention to this, but eventually I kept seeing it on my timeline. I was like, let me check this out. So I did pay attention to the whole who the F did I marry series. Now, I didn't have the patience to sit through all of that, but I made it through about 2 hours before I tapped out. Now, this is the Reesa Teesa girl, right? And this is a woman who had a TikTok account, and she's just sharing her experience with who is now her ex-husband, just the experience of being with this guy that just had, I don't even know how to explain it. Just know I probably said, what? Like 50,000 times with each video. She marries this guy who is just not who he says he is. And so she takes us on this roller coaster of so much. Like when I tell you every 30, what? Dang, I wish I had like some juices and berries in my hair so it would move. What? Like every 5 seconds. I'm like, what is, man? And so the thing that I found interesting, because like I said, I didn't see the whole thing. I gave up. I was like, okay, this is interesting, but I don't care enough. This is taking up too much of my life. All right. I only got so many years left of my younger years. We need to utilize them wisely. And so with the half that I got, the things that got me was like, there were so many red flags. Like because she would break this up by TikTok episode. I don't know how many episodes there were, but I think I stopped at like episode 21 or something. And I mean, every episode, it was something new that this dude or this guy had done that was like, that's your sign to get out. That's your sign to get out. That's your sign to get out. Okay, now this is the time when you're going to get out and go. This is the time when you start the car. This is the time when you pack the bag. And it was just like, man, she just would not like take the hint. And it was like, there was so many red flags. Like there was enough flags for there to be like an Olympic ceremony, like the opening ceremony. It was just every detail got crazier and crazier. I'm like, why are you still here? Right. And I think what got me the most is she kept talking about how she would keep doing the voice notes. Every time something crazy would happen, she was like, yeah, and then I went and, after this house that we were supposed to buy fell through because he never put a bid on it and we thought we were moving next week, I went and recorded a voice note. After we were supposed to get this car and the car didn't come through, I went and recorded a voice note. There was a part where, and I guess I'm spoiling it, sorry if I'm messing it up for you, where she talks about how she had gotten pregnant and sadly she loses the pregnancy. So, she has to go to the hospital and go through the process of what happens when you lose a pregnancy. And he wasn't able to come because he was at work. I said, oh, okay. Those are normally the moments when work can take a back seat. But even in that, after all of that experience, she's like, I went and I recorded a voice note. I'm like, you got about one more note to record. Like record the voice notes while you packing. Right? Record the voice note while you're driving away after you done canceled the lease or whatever you did. But man, but there was just so many red flags. The red flag about the situation with them trying to get the house. Again, the conversation about the miscarriage. There was a part where he was kind of gaslighting her about some ex that he claimed he came to visit her that wasn't really there. And like, I was just like, man, and mind you, I promise you, I'm not judging this girl because I get it. Like, I think when you really are head over heels for somebody, sometimes the logic and the emotion and how your heart work, they just don't, they're moving parts, but they don't work together, right? Because I'm not gonna lie, I've been a sucker or two or three or four, right? And so I get it. Everybody's been somebody's fool at some point. And so, you know, I get it. I think in her experience, she wanted it to work so bad. She was willing to see past a lot of things, all in the faith and the hope that this was going to work. But I was just like, at some point, and this is not me judging. I promise you, I'm not judging. I was just like, I want better for you. That's all I'm saying. But it just seems like she really wanted it to work. And it felt bad the more I kept listening. And I will say she does a really good job of taking her elements of accountability, where she's like, well, this is what I should have done, or I should have saw the sign. And honestly, sometimes I think with relationships, again, when you're head over heels for somebody, sometimes you don't even catch the signs till it's all said and done, till it's like done, right? Because like I said, when you're head over heels, you know, the logic that you have gets watered down by your emotion, right? And that's in any situation. Even when you think about like when you're pissed off sometimes, if you are just so enraged that you can't control yourself, the logic goes out the window. You start doing things that you wouldn't have done any other moment. That time I told y'all when I got kicked out of IHOP after snapping on this one lady, right? And I talked about how in that moment where I'm like standing up and like screaming at this lady in IHOP in front of everybody, I remember like almost like being outside of my body talking to myself like, are you really in here screaming at everybody like this? But at the same time, I was in my pocket. I was like, F this, you're going to hear what I got to say, right? So I get it. In those moments, things happen, but I was like, that mess is wild. And because it involved money and livelihood, but there was just things that she did that they did that I would never really jump into, because I think they moved in together in like 3 weeks after knowing each other, mainly because it was COVID and they wanted to quarantine together. I was like, some might say that was a good idea. You get to see people at their worst, but I'm like, nah, not after 3 weeks, right? Like, I'm good on that. But yeah, it was like I was watching it. I had to keep reminding her, like, come on, be for real, be for real. And like I said, I've been there. I think for all of 2022 and 2023, I had to keep telling myself, be for real. Be for real, self. This is not for you, right? With certain situations and stuff that I'm no longer tied to. But like, I get it. I totally get it. But man, apparently, she's probably made a really pretty penny off TikTok. I was like, damn, should I go to TikTok and start telling my business so I can get a check too? Right? YouTube is great, but TikTok money moves a little bit different. But we're gonna see how that unfolds. I felt bad for the lady. I don't know how her story ended because I stopped watching. I stopped caring after a while. I was like, all right, this is my brain cells that started to get fried following this. It was too many loopholes. But I mean, that woman went on a roller coaster. That was a roller coaster indeed. I'm gonna pause and read some comments. But man, be for real. You just gotta get up sometime. Get up. What's that salt and pepper song? Everybody get up. Boom. Thank you, Kesey NH. Oh, speaking of, thank you. Let me read your whole comment out loud. All right. Great work on that, Nikki Haley. The USA has never been a racist country. Breakdown. Excellent commentary. Keep up the great work. Stay up, good sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. Speaking of Nikki Haley, you know what's interesting? We already kind of saw how this was going to start ending for her with the campaign and the election. And I just feel for Nikki's case, if she were smart as far as her running for office, she wouldn't have tried to run as a carbon copy of Trump. Because for people that are locked in and tied and they're going to be married to Trump till death do them part, like Trump can literally at this point step on a puppy's head on live TV and they would say it was the puppy's fault. So people that are tied to Trump are not going to jump the Trump ship and go to Nikki if Nikki has literally the exact same policy as Trump and the same everything as Trump. The only difference is she got on lipstick. So yeah, you're not going to win over that Trump base that you kept trying to appease to. They're riding with Trump no matter what. Understand that politics is so weird. And I've said this, people should never be fans of politicians, but unfortunately that's where we're at. And you have people who are literally just tied to some of these politicians, married to them. Like it's almost like standing, right? Where some of these politicians have become their religion. And I think when it comes to the diehard Trumpers, that man is their God and there's nothing he can do wrong and they're not budging. And so if Nikki had been smarter, she would have tried to reach to the other demographic. Because like I said, MAGA represents 30% of Republicans. The other 70% is all in these different pockets and so on and so forth. If she were smart, she would have tried to pull in the moderate voter. She would have tried to pull in the independent voter. She might have even tried to say, you know what, there's a few Democrats that are pissed off with everything. Maybe I can win some of them over and pull them over too. But no, she wanted to jump into a bunch of stupid spots and, you know, slavery. The Civil War wasn't about slavery and America's never been a racist country. And let's raise the retirement age to over the age of 70. Yeah, that's really going to win over millennials and Gen Z, right? We're already underpaid and overworked, but okay. And so sucks for her. We'll kind of see what happens with her situation. But like I said, I'm not excited about any of this election. I'm not looking forward to it. I almost wish that I could just mute and just jump past November and then just jump into whatever we fall into, because I really do not feel like getting suckered into and tied into everything with this next election because it's about to be just chaos, right? Anyway, let me keep reading some comments. Toya8169 Jam said it may have been someone from the building, which, why is my camera out of focus? Get back in focus. Hey, over here. Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. I do think it's somebody within the building because you needed like a fob and everything to get to the garage. So my theory was it was somebody that either lived in the building, maybe somebody that worked in the building. I don't know. The way that my building is set up, the garage is kind of hidden anyway. So unless you know the building, you wouldn't know the garage is there. So I don't think it's like a random person off the street that came. So I'm like, yeah, something ain't adding up around these parts, but we gonna figure it out. What up, Harold? Shamia said probably someone's kids in the building, which I think it might be. I feel like it's some teenagers that want to take a car, take the cars for a joyride. Because a lot of the teenagers are just still in the car and they do their TikTok trend and drive it around and they leave it somewhere. They don't even know how to do that right. At least sell the parts. You know what I mean? Go all, if you're gonna do the crime, go all out. That's all I'm saying. I was like, you were better off just stealing the car so I could get a new one. And I had to take it to the shop. And I'm over here taking my old car to the shop and I got to park by the new cars. Or actually the tow truck took it because the car couldn't start no more because they messed up the wires. But I want to take a nice car to the shop. I'm over here taking my struggle car. It's fine though. Somebody said she was very desperate to be married and that's sad. I guess, like I said, I'm trying to not judge her because everybody's experience is different. And I think a lot of times when we're looking from the outside and it's so easy to be like, yeah, this is what you should have did. And then we end up in that situation, we all screwed up in the head. But yeah, it does seem like she really loved the idea of getting married because she kept talking about, that whole thing of she was uncomfortable living with him and they weren't married. Everybody moves different. Me, marriage will be great. I'm not pressed for it though. If it happens, wonderful. If it doesn't, I'll figure out whatever I want to do. But yeah, so I get it. Everybody's experience is different. And you've seen some people who, yeah, they jump from, everybody knows somebody that jumps from relationship to relationship to relationship. And when they jump in each one, they go hard. Like they go so hard where they're irrational, right? And the same 110% they put in the last person that they just broke up with, they putting it into this new person that they've known for a week and a half. And they already talking about marriage and stuff. I'm like, y'all move real fast around these parts. Okay, listen, when red flags be coming, I be looking for a reason to get out. I'm like, hold up, I don't like the way you ended that text message. I'm out of here. But anyway, Tyler said this is a weird Black History Month. It's a very weird one. I don't understand. This is supposed to be the time where we celebrate and just great things to embrace. It's been all kind of wild stuff around these parts. I don't get it. All right. Somebody said I thought my phone was on do not disturb. Sorry, y'all can leave me alone. All right. Somebody said you got kicked out of a. Yeah, I did a video on it years ago. This is like throwback Calvin Michaels when I still cuss like a sailor on the channel. So yeah. Long story. It's on this channel somewhere. Somebody said he'll probably pick Tim Scott for his running mate. I honestly don't even think Tim Scott will be the running mate because I don't think Trump likes Tim Scott. And I don't think Trump sees Tim Scott as somebody that is strong because Tim Scott is so pressed to win over everybody and everything at the expense of his own collective and at the expense of his own integrity and dignity. I don't think Trump takes him seriously. So yeah, he'll use him for something. Maybe he'll get to be in the cabinet, but I don't see him as the VP pick. The only reason they would use him as a VP pick is if they thought they had a shot at getting a larger, sample of the Black vote, right? And they will say, yeah, we got the Black VP. Let's get it. That's probably the only approach I could see. But no, Trump is going to get somebody else, I think. All right, I want to keep going because we got a lot to cover here. It's supposed to be Black History Month, y'all. I don't know what's going on. Cam Newton. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but so we saw there's been a video that's kind of going viral where you had a group of men try to jump Cam Newton at a 7-on-7 tournament for the kids, right? And it's very interesting because when you get into the details of just the logistics of who knows who, like these are people that have known Cam for like 5 or 6 years. These are people that all have somewhat of a connection to Cam based on what he does with his sports stuff and what they do. And really it's a situation of just personal beef and trash talking. And really when you start mixing like the whole trash talking thing, plus some ego, plus some adrenaline and an audience, you end up getting what we saw, where you got 7 men trying to jump one person. I'm like, Lord, not at the kids event. And my thing is this, again, it's Black History Month, y'all. But anyway, I get it. Based on what I've kind of seen from all the people involved, clearly there's some tension or whatever. But my thing is, there's a place and time for that. If y'all really had smoke for the man or whatever, sure, handle your business, but not at the kids event. That's all I'm saying. It's like folks will spend all this time talking about being community leaders and being this and being that. And the minute people's ego gets bruised, they want to throw hands right away, right? Becoming very irrational, becoming illogical, just, spontaneous and sporadically jumping into their emotions and ego. Just like we said with the Who the F Did I Marry girl. Again, that conversation of logic versus emotion and how your feelings are. And when all of that kind of gets thrown into the pot together, logic always is last priority. Everybody just moves on how they feel. And so now they done moved on how they feel and thought they could jump on an NFL player, somebody who literally cracks skulls for a living. His job is to run head first and crack skulls or score or do whatever. Like football is just break everybody's body down. And so this man that is in this wonderful shape then laid out all 7, or not all 7, but all these people that then tried to fight him, and the man's hat didn't even come off. You know how embarrassing that is to try to initiate a fight and jump somebody and then y'all lose? Like, man, I'm just trying to picture if I had a crew of friends and we decided to go jump somebody. First of all, I'm not going to participate probably, but I'd be the last one to jump in. But if I'm looking and I see my first 4 friends are getting slung around, I said, all right, we're going to regroup and find. But me and the other friend left, all right, what else we going to do? Because this ain't working. The 2 strongest friends went first and they got thrown over there. So clearly, I'm about 60 pounds lighter than that guy. That's not going to work. So I don't know what they would have did, but it's just in front of the kids. Come on, y'all. Do better. Because again, it's Black History Month. It's Black History Month. There's a time and a place. If y'all want to throw hands, do it amongst yourselves in y'all own collective spaces. But you know what I mean? And it's weird because there's always been, I think when it comes to sports, especially with a lot of us men, a lot of us get very emotionally immature around sports, right? I don't know if it's because of it's such an adrenaline rush. It's this big macho alpha male, show your strength kind of thing. So when things start going wrong, you start getting mad, right? I'm not really a sports person, so I don't be caring like that. I'm not missing no sleep. I'm not throwing no hands over no basketball game because I ain't played basketball since I was 9 or 10, right? But it's interesting how you see how emotionally folks get, or emotionally attached people get to sports sometimes. Even when I was still working with my kids, I would always go to their football games, their basketball games. And the most interesting thing sometimes, especially for the football leagues, because folks will go so hard. And so, I'm at my kids' games and these kids are like 11 or 12, right? One step before they really start getting to the more serious leagues. And you would see some of these coaches, some of the assistants, and then some of these people who aren't even coaches. They're the cousin of the best friend of the neighbor who's wanted to coach, but they all want to stand on the sidelines because everybody want to look important. So, it's the little league team, and they got 50 adults that's all on the coaching team, and there's really 2 coaches, right? But you would see some of these folks that would get so emotionally invested into these games with the kids, where it's they cussing at the kids like grown adults. They mad. Dude's got, man, I told you so many times, man, catch the ball. I'm like, y'all, bring it on down. Bring it down, right? It's this little man's first year playing, and y'all about to, literally, and I don't know if this is because some of the people in those spaces, they had the NFL dream when they were teenagers, and now they're 33, 34. It didn't quite happen. And now they're living vicariously through the kid. I don't know. I'm not trying to place judgment. I get it. It is something that you can become very passionate about, especially if it's a sport that you love. But when it gets to the point where it's you've made it about yourself and not about the kids learning these new leadership skills and this element of teamwork and learning to push themselves. Because in order for kids to really be, or to excel at a sport, especially at that age, they have to want it. And I think we got a lot of kids who don't even really want to play sports like that. They're doing it to appease their friends or their parents, or they thought it was something they wanted to do, and then they got into it and realized this ain't for me, but they're already locked in. And so now they're getting cussed out at every game and fussed at. It's just irrational. One time, true story, I'm not going to name the place because then that's a little too close for comfort. Y'all going to start looking up stuff. But I remember some of the kids at my center also played basketball. And I remember I went to one of their games. It was at this center in the area, right? And mind you, especially at my old company, they didn't even, I don't know if it's changed, but before I left, they had to stop high school basketball, period. Now, this wasn't with the schools, but this is our after school programs. They stopped high school basketball mainly because the teenagers got too emotionally invested, and there'll be a fight after every game, especially when we had the DC locations playing, and them kids would be wrecking after every game. So they had to cancel the high school leagues. And then it wasn't just the kids, it would be the parents. The parents would be in them games so tight and hot when stuff went wrong, where the parents are ready to throw hands, and you got teenagers ready to fight adults and vice versa. But anyway, back to my story. One time there was this game. Now, this wasn't at one of the centers in my old company. This was something unrelated, but some of my kids played for this league. And there was a center. There was a parent who was hot with the ref. He did not like the ref's call or whatever it was. Now, mind you, these kids are like, I want to say 10, maybe 10 years old. Might even be 11. And so the parent did not like the call that the ref had. So the parent and the ref getting this big old argument, right? I can't remember which person did what, but I know one of them left and went outside because it really became like a physical altercation. So one of them went outside, went in their car, grabbed their gun, and came back in the venue with the gun because they needed to prove a point. You know, they needed to stand on business. They needed to be about the principle. So they brought a gun into an event with children and their grandmas who want to see their babies play and all that because two grown men can't manage their emotions at a kid's game. Right? So I just, there's a lot. It's Black History Month, y'all. I need us to get this right. Do better, please. We're tired. We are tired, right? My God. You know, even at my gym, like the other day, these two guys tried to get in a fight at the gym. I'm like, y'all fighting at the gym? Now, mind you, I don't even go to one of the larger ones, but the gym that I go to is it's a bit smaller, so there's not as many machines to choose from. And the two dudes started arguing because one was doing like a superset. You know, like when somebody just hogs the machine all day, and then half the time they don't even be working out. They got phone and they taking selfies and setting up the phone and making TikTok videos. And you like, can you get off the machine so the rest of us can use it? It was like one of those situations. But it's like, if there's one place I'm not getting in a fight at, it's the gym. Because that's when everybody's the weakest. You've been pumping iron and all that, so your body's already tired. That's the last time you want to get in a fight. Because that's probably when you're going to lose, especially if you just did all the bench pressing and all that. And you think you got energy to sustain yourself in a fight for 5 or 6 minutes. I don't know, whatever. I'm going to read some comments and then we're going to keep it moving. Yeah, and then we'll get to Diddy. It's Black History Month, y'all. It's Black History Month. Man. Soulflow said, we're taking country music back. Yeah, let's go for it. We always excel in everything we do, so I support it. Cellular Avenger, I agree. He said Trump is not getting a black running mate. His supporters are too racist for that. If he were to get a black running mate, he would have to get one that is such a token. As embarrassing as Tim Scott is, I don't think Tim Scott is embarrassing enough. So, like, I don't see it. Man. Somebody said he got jumped and beat them all. That's embarrassing. Like that. I would be so embarrassed if I tried to jump somebody and we all lost. Like, what's the car ride home like after that happens? Are y'all riding home in silence, or what's the next day like? And then all the kids watched y'all get tossed and slung around. Like, how does that work? Man. All right. Kev C said, I checked it out. The Cam Newton fight was the fight, but no one pressed charges, so it's a done deal. No one's getting arrested. Cam held them off pretty well. So, and honestly, watch all of them be running together in like a week, because you know a lot of times when folks be having a beef and drama about silly things, it comes and it goes and they move on. Watch it be something like that, but who knows? And from what I understand, these were adults. I don't think these were kids fighting Cam Newton. I think these were adults, from what I understand. JDB Straws, exactly. Can't stand those people that are living vicariously through their kids. Like, it's weird. Like, let your kid, like, I get it. Some folks really want to get behind their kids if the kids want to do something. But yeah, when it gets to the point where you make it about you've lost the point. The point has been lost, right? Man, nothing worse than watching kids be forced to do something they don't want to do because they're trying to please their parents and they're not happy. And then the parents just, they make it worse. Somebody said maybe Herschel Walker's embarrassing enough. No, they wouldn't go with Herschel. Trump needs somebody that can bring in numbers. And so after Herschel lost, yeah. You ever notice too, in a lot of these elections, these magical candidates show up and they talk about all these things they're going to do for the people. And then when they lose, you never hear or see from them again. You would just think that if somebody was really passionate about making things better for folks, even if they lost, even if they never run again, you would still see them doing the community work. You would see them, getting behind another candidate, or you would see them trying to implement different things or doing something to ensure that the vision they have comes into fruition some kind of way. You never see that. That's why I'm like, so many of these people are bought out and paid to run. I remember, what's the guy? He's running for office in Michigan, I think. God, what is his name? I can like literally, he hosts How It Really Happened on HLN. Hill Harper, how he talked about people were offering him what $15 million to run against the one lady, and with the lady that's Palestinian. They say she's in the squad. I forgot the lady's name. Y'all know who I'm talking about though. Talib, what Rashida Tlaib, I think. How they were going to pay him, or they offered him $15 million to run against her so that she could kind of be booted out. Like, understand, it's some nonsense on here. What up, Tareen Rain Reloaded? Make sure you check out his channel too. He's consistent, okay? Tareen be having a video every day. Every time I look on YouTube, he be having videos loaded up. Me, on the other hand, y'all gotta you gotta shake an 8 ball. Is Calvin doing a video today? Don't count on it. Like, man. So life is just life, and I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I really be trying, but life is kicking my behind. Okay, so let's shift gears here. Diddy, God, it's Black History Month. I will say I don't have a whole lot of opinion on this because we kind of just talked about him like a month or two ago, right? So a lot of what I said then kind of stands. But the thing with Diddy that's interesting is like he always got so much going on. Every other month, his name is coming up in something. You know what I mean? And the sad part about it is with this new allegation, because it's an allegation from a producer who was already planning to sue him, pretty much saying Diddy hadn't been paying him what he should have been paid for working on that last album, which is crazy because I remember before all the Diddy scandal happened, I was talking about how great that album was. It's like, this is a really nice album. I like all these songs and stuff. And so one of the producers, the name, I think J-Rod is the name, talks about how he hadn't been paid adequately and these different things like that. But the sad part is, even if the guy that is launching the lawsuit was lying about everything, the problem is Diddy's name comes up in so much stuff that it makes it very hard not to believe the allegations that come sometimes because of his associations, right? Because of the criticism he gets for his business practices and how so many people have been burned by him, right? His reputation, it has just been like tarnished year after year. People who have been like associated with him and just the things that just continue to like take place, just everything works against him, right? And so it makes it really hard for people to really want to stand behind him because it's like there's just so many boxes you can check of things where it's like he's really dropped the ball on how he handled that. He's really made poor choices with that. And then when you start looking at behavioral patterns and different stories and people's stories all aligned together, you're like, wait a minute. But I will say, like I said, I have not 100% read all the details in this one, so I am not about to place judgment yet. But again, it's just like this case features allegations of sexual assault, human trafficking, initiating certain things with minors, which fall into that category of statutory rape, right? Conversations of drugging, right? There's so many things that have just jumped out in this. And what's also interesting is you don't really see anybody jumping in his support, right? And I think that goes back to the conversation of he's burned so many bridges. You don't even have anybody in your corner, right? And then what I find really interesting, because there's so many layers to this, I'll just say it's interesting what it is that people choose to harp on in these situations. With all of the details that have been coming out, I always pay attention to what I see people really responding to. And I'm like, okay, with everything I see where some people's priorities are. Interesting. We're going to really see where this goes. But honestly, I think that man's legacy is tarnished and done. And I do think, like what I've said before, I really believe sometimes the energy you put into the world or into the universe comes back in different forms and different layers. And I think for Diddy, what also works against him is this is a recent allegation. This is not like a situation where it's somebody from 1991 that's saying, back when he was at Uptown Records, he busted in on me when I was in the bathroom or something like that. This is like 8 months ago, this happened, right? Now, my only other question that makes me question some of this too is for the accuser, with all the things that they listed, my thing, and this is not even directed towards them, but for me, the same approach with R. Kelly. I'm all for holding people accountable when they do things that are wrong. But my thing is, why does everybody stay silent while they sit in the spaces and see the other things going on? If you knew that there were children being possibly trafficked or minors being, sexually assaulted and all this different thing, why is it that nothing is ever said until there's time for the lawsuit when you finally have your grievance? Like, you sit in these spaces and you stay silent while all of that is happening because everybody's trying to get the come up or everybody's trying to be in the room and get into that next door. And so people turn a blind eye to the nonsense. And then when stuff hits the fan or the money didn't come in right or they pissed off, now they want to talk about what everybody was doing and this person and that person and that person. So it's like, man, listen, when push comes to shove, tear the whole thing down. Don't tear it down after you didn't get your part. Because my question becomes, well, if you would have gotten the adequate payment you were supposed to get, and this is just in general with a lot of these folks, if you would have gotten the adequate payment you were supposed to get, would you have ever said anything? Would you have ended up staying silent and let those people who became victims of whatever aggressor or offensive person is doing what it is that they're doing to these different people? Would you have remained silent because you got your check and you lived your life and just said, well, that's a part of that world, that ain't on me? Like that, those are the things I start to think about in these situations. You know what I mean? So again, and it's kind of like there are certain celebrities, and I get it. There's lots of spaces I would love to work in. I'd love to work in music. I'd love to work in film. But there's also a lot of people where if the opportunity come, I wouldn't even take it because I wouldn't even want the association with that person. There's a handful of people where I'm like, damn, as great as that money would be, that's somebody I want nothing to do with because they just, there's too many boxes that they check. And I just see there being nonsense and stuff, right? And so those are the things I started to have questions about. Like, yes, let's hold these people accountable when they're doing what it is that they do, if they've done it. But I also look at you sideways if you remain silent while all these things were happening, right? It just makes me look, it's hard to, now you're still a victim, but it's hard to give you the empathy that you want to give to a victim because it's like you knew there were other victims and you didn't do any, you know, that's how I look at it. Like I said, I haven't read all the details on this, so I'm trying to not place judgment or give a full opinion on everything. So I'm kind of speaking more so in just general terms. But, you know, we'll see how this unfolds. It's Black History Month. It's Black History Month. Jesus. All right. Let me read some comments here. Somebody said Herschel is a puppet who's being used by other Republican politicians. That's why he was never alone in the interview. Herschel just was up there just saying anything. I was like, come on, bro. Come on. What up, Alan? What up? Stella Avenger said Diddy is the worst parts of Lucius Lyon and Big Red all rolled into one. Look, Big Red from 5 Heartbeats. My office, what did he say? My office hours are what, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5? I forgot how he says. I got to watch the movie again. And then with Diddy, I be feeling bad for his kids, like the 2 daughters. I'm like, imagine you go on social media, you see everybody lighting your parents up, and now even one of your siblings, because I think one of Diddy's kids was also implicated in all of this. So I'm like, Lord. So we'll see how this unfolds. Brooke Smith, it's pretty sad. People being more impressed about Diddy potentially being queer than abusing people, worrying about the wrong thing. And that was kind of what I was getting at. I was like, it's interesting that, again, allegations of human trafficking, drugging people, sexual assault, but it's noticeable that that's what everybody harped on and ran with. And that became, because you know the other thing too, folks will get a joke in, right? So here come all the different memes and the jokes and the stuff. I'm like, man, folks are moving real weird in these moments. All right. And I don't think Diddy's it. I think there's so many other people. I think there's so many people. I really think this era that we're currently in is the era of everything. Chickens coming to roost. Everything coming out on folks. Right? Let's see. Star Sherry said, yes, they would have stayed silent. Everybody wants to be on top, which is crazy. That's like, y'all know if you follow me, my biggest thing in all of this is integrity at the end of the day. The one thing that I feel like changes how the world moves with people is once your integrity is gone, people will never deal with you the same way because they know you ain't about anything. They know you're full of crap, right? And you can kind of see that with how some folks move. I think once your integrity is compromised and you have shown that you are not able to make sound decisions and honorable decisions in moments where you have an opportunity to make all kind of gains at the expense of things that would be, you know, damaging to other folks or things that would really make you shine in a very negative light. I think once you get to that threshold and you make these terrible choices or, you know, you sell yourself out, I think people never look at you the same again. Like, you know, so I look at like an Omarosa, right? Very intelligent woman, you know, has all of these wonderful accolades, but because of some of the choices that she's made, even though she's tried to do like a 180 with her image, there's people who will never take her seriously because it's like, no, we saw how you moved with that election and how you said we were going to bow to Trump, right? We were going to bow to that man. And then as soon as you got kicked out and you went and they fired you at the Christmas party, you couldn't get in, the fob didn't work, right? Then the next thing you know, you're on the press run, you got a book out, and then, I'm coming back to my people. Like, y'all stop using us as a crutch when y'all get into some nonsense. Stay on over there with the nonsense. You want to jump over there? Enjoy it. That's the road you want to create for yourself. So stay over there. Don't come back to us and we got to fix the problem and welcome you with open arms. My people. My people. A lot of these rappers are doing the same thing too, right? A lot of these rappers I've noticed have become very, very right-wing, but not right-wing because they just have conservative views, more so right-wing because there's money in conservatism when you're black at this moment, because there's only so many black conservatives that are public figures. So a lot of black public figures that are conservatives are getting very nice checks to go on these platforms and spew out whatever talking points folks want them to say. And so you're seeing so many go that direction because they know it's a come up. But then when something happens, then when they unjustly or unjustifiably get treated by the police a certain kind of way, or whatever happens, or the label is doing something to them, now they want to rally us up and we're supposed to march behind them because they're doing this to the black man. I'm like, a minute ago, you didn't want to be black. Remember, you was Cherokee last week. Now you're black again. All right. So folks, stop playing in our faces. Stop playing in our faces. All right, I'm going to read a few more comments, then we're going to keep going. Somebody said, but folks question Cassie, though. That Cassie bit, I saw that once I saw the piece with the car blowing up, I was like, this is wild. This is a movie. Like, this is some wild stuff here. Man. Anon Y said, waving the red flag and Calvin the same night, all the content I need. Okay. Yeah, a lot of these folks are moving real weird. Yeah, I'm not black, I'm OJ. Same thing, right? They know how to work the room. They know when it's time to come to black folk. Like, understand, I've always said this too, with whatchamacallit, a lot of black entertainers, especially black entertainers that cross over and become household names in white households, right? Notice whenever white folks get pissed off at black entertainers, they're done, canceled. And then who do they come back to? They always come home to us. Look at how white folks are moving with Will Smith, right? They are still so hurt about that Oscar slap. You would have thought Will Smith stabbed 10 people. And so look at how things have worked for him with white America. They're not checking for him. They don't want to see no movies. They don't care. I'm interested to see what happens with Bad Boys 4 and the sequel to I Am Legend, but you just see how they move. By the way, I need somebody to confirm this. I swear, y'all can call me crazy if you want to. I swear that's Will Smith on that Burger King commercial. Add BK, have it your way. Are y'all sure that's not Will Smith? Because I'm like, that gotta be Will. Like, and it would be perfect because you can't see him, so that's a quick way to get some money. Nobody knows it's him, but I swear that's him. And every time I ask on Twitter, they're like, no, that's not him. I'm like, it sounds just like him. Are y'all sure? Because hell, he might need the money. He go do the Burger King jingle. But whatever, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's interesting. Folks will sit here and sell us out, and then when they get washed up and used by the masses, they always come back home to the people every single time, right? Every time. I'm telling y'all that's Will Smith. I'd play, but I think YouTube will flag me. That gotta be him. I swear it's him. I swear it's Will Smith. I'm gonna Google who's singing that. If it ain't Will, it's somebody that they told him to sound like Will. Right. Pick Me Bree said they flip-flop in and out their blackness like no other. Yeah, blackness when it's convenient. Every single time. Zebra Lynn said Clive Davis did so many artists wrong, like our beloved Phyllis Hyman. Exactly. There's a I know in DC, I don't know the dates, but I know in DC there's a theater production on Phyllis Hyman. If I find the information on it, I will happily whatchamacallit. I will happily send information. Yeah, I'll find. If I find it, I'll put it in chat. But I know there's a whatchamacallit. There is a production on the life of Phyllis Hyman at one of these venues here in DC. I got to look up the details on it, but I will happily share it if I can find the information on it. All right. Don't get me started on them Trump sneakers. You know what? You know what? I'll come to that. Give me a second. Everybody's stupid. Everybody's stupid. Speaking of Trump, the Supreme Court is planning to hear his immunity case. Understand that with everything that's happening, there's the Jack Smith probe, right? And that's rooted in a lot of the nonsense Trump has gotten himself into. And so everybody knows Trump's strategy with everything that happens with the court systems is delay, delay, delay. Push everything. Get as many stays as you can. Get another hearing. Push this back. Push push and push. And so their lane has been, because he was president, he is immune from, being held accountable for anything he did while he's in office. But the problem is, what he's in trouble for are things that took place after he was president. But they're still like, nope, immunity. So that's what they're running with. And in the lower courts, they said, nope, that doesn't work. It went to the appellate court. They said, nope, that doesn't work. And so, of course, it finds its way in the Supreme Court. Now, what's interesting, and I've said this before, like Trump uses the Supreme Court like his customer service. Understand that there are 7,000 applicants every year as far as cases that are put before the Supreme Court. They can only take on about 100 to 150 cases a year out of 7,000. And it seems like every case that Trump complains about finds its way to the Supreme Court. When we were in 2020 and it was all the election stuff and he was convinced that it was a stolen election, when I look at how many cases found its way to the Supreme Court, right? When I look at just everything that he's been fighting and clawing for in modern times, they hear every case of his. I was like, the way that everything's just backwards to me. You know what I mean? It's just interesting what is being prioritized. And understand the significance of what that word to mean. Let's just say the court says, yes, he was immune. That kind of ends the Jack Smith probe pretty much. And then that also states that somebody like a Trump or anybody else in that position technically will never be held accountable for anything, because it is saying while you were president, you were immune from this. And now that you're not president, you still have the protections of being the president, so on and so forth. Or let's say that the Jack Smith thing falls apart. Let's say he wins in November. He can pardon himself from all of the federal charges. He can't pardon himself for what's happening in Georgia, but he can pardon himself for the whole Jack Smith probe and everything else like that. And he's already told y'all it's going to be a vengeance run if he gets up in there. He is ready to make everybody pay who went against him. So this will be a very interesting time period. And now that they are going to actually hear this case on the week of April 22nd, there is a high possibility that that Jack Smith case will not even be handled until after the election. So yeah, we might be in for an S-word show. And this goes back to why I said Merrick Garland is sorry. And I still side-eye Obama for even considering him for the Supreme Court, because it was like, this is what happens when y'all keep playing with white moderates. White moderates are also going to uphold the status quo, right? And so, Merrick Garland ends up becoming, over the Department of Justice. He had 3 years to deal with Trump after January 6th. They let that crap slide. They skated, they played, they took their sweet time. It allowed Trump to get a lot of leverage. And understand, Americans are very forgetful very quickly, right? Americans move on from everything. January 6th is not even a big deal to a lot of folks. I ain't shutting up about it because I'm like, hell no. We watched it live on TV. It'll be 2059. I'll still be talking about January 6th. Like, hell no. I don't want to hear nothing about order and anything else. Not after January 6th. I don't want to hear it, right? But he played games for 3 years as far as Merrick Garland. And because of that, it set precedents where, Orange Man has been able to run around and feel invincible. And he's been moving that way. Now we see that he got to pay this $400+ million. We'll see how that goes. But, at this point, we've just watched the games we played. We've had impeachment hearings and probes and all of that. And even with all that being done, and all the people in the Trump cabinets that quit and came out with books and said, yes, this man is crazy. This is what this man did. This is what this man did. Book after book after book. I'm side-eyeing all of them too. It goes back to what I was saying with the Diddy camp, where y'all knew all this crap was happening, but y'all don't say nothing until there's nothing you can gain from the person anymore. Now you want to come out here and kick the fence down. The fence should have been kicked down as soon as you saw the nonsense. That's all I'm saying, right? So we'll see how that goes. And then as far as the sneaker situation, because I did see the what was it, the news anchor that was talking about, because Trump unveiled some sneaker he has at SneakerCon in Philly, right? And the news anchor was like, yeah, this is amazing, for the Black community. I mean, this is how he connects with them. The Black community, they love sneakers, they love shoes, and this, to them, they're saying this guy relates to my experience. I was like, the way these folks think Black voters are, we just stupid. Like, sometimes when you just listen to the way that news commentators talk about Black voters, right? They really talk about us like the aliens from Toy Story. Remember in Toy Story when they go to Pizza Planet? And this is when Buzz was so pressed to get on the spaceship. And so he sees that big old game machine that looks like the spaceship with the claw, and he can pick up the toys. And then Buzz is like, who's in charge here? And then the aliens are like, the claw is our leader. He chooses who will go and who will stay. Like, that's the way they be talking about us when it comes to our voting patterns. Well, Black voters, how are they going to move? How are they going to move? Even Trump was saying, which was interesting, what was it, the Black conservative convention he had, where there was 10 Black people in the crowd and the rest of the folks were white, where he was talking about, now that I've been indicted, I can relate to the Black experience. I was like, all right, the same person who already put out a hit on the Central Park 5. That's who y'all want to, okay, right. But anyway, what's interesting with those sneakers, I need people to understand that's the cash grab. The sneakers will help him to pay his legal fees, right? He's already using campaign money to pay off his legal fees. But understand, coming out with a sneaker line and trying to market them as exclusive and as something that's top tier, and of course, wealthy people, or not even wealthy people, everyday people as well, are going to be foolish to run in line to get them, Fat Joe. It's interesting. And because, even with that goes back to that Trump branding, the idea of being this top tier elite epitome of wealth. The shoes are gold. They're shiny. They stand out. And then they throw the flag on there to make sure the patriotic Americans get behind it. And yeah, it just seems like this exclusive thing. And I'm like, y'all have never even seen Trump wear sneakers before, but y'all running in line to go get them. Not really y'all, but you know who the folks I'm talking about that are pressed to go get it. It's just interesting to see how people move in this day and age. In fact, Joe, I was looking at sideways. I'm like, this is the same man when your home country of Puerto Rico, right, had the hurricane, and not only did under that Trump administration, they barely moved the needle on getting Puerto Rico the aid that they needed, because for some reason people think Puerto Rico is not a part of the United States. Yes, Puerto Rico is not a state, but it is a U.S. territory in the same way that American Samoa is, in the same way that Guam is, in the same way that you have all these places that are American territory. So when things happen to them, like the U.S. Virgin Islands, our federal dollars help support them as well. But the fact that he did not move the needle to help Puerto Rico, instead he was throwing some paper towels like footballs to about 10 people and do a photo op, and then you want to go and support his shoes talking about you're a sneakerhead, you collect sneakers. I guess if that's how you want to move, whatever, right? You also like to rewrite history a lot when it comes to hip hop, so that'd be another conversation. And so we've just seen, Lord, the nonsense. So I'm gonna pause really quick and read some comments, and then we'll keep going from there. All right, I'm gonna scroll up. Yeah, I mean, the black community, I mean, they're sneakerheads. And mind you, it's a bunch of white folks who you can tell ain't never been with no black folks for real. They might know one random kind of Tim Scott type folk, but they don't even be around us like that, but they know everything about us and how we move, which is why politicians, again, they do certain things like start hip hop coalitions with politics and getting, I'm like, y'all gonna have to learn entertainment is not whatchamacallit. Like, please stop looking at entertainers and athletes as the voice of Black America. Those are the anomalies and the exceptions. Those are the people that make it out of certain situations and get into spaces that the average person doesn't get into. And that also includes white folks, because even an athlete and entertainer is not the average experience for white folks either. But for some reason, for us, it's always celebrity, and celebrities that are not even politically educated, right? Don't even have the range. Again, like I said, I look at the Breakfast Club. I keep saying this, and I said this on the last live. I don't even like the idea of politicians going on a Breakfast Club. For me, the Breakfast Club, their purpose is entertainment. They're not really well versed in politics. They can have their opinions, but if you're going to have these political discussions, then you really need to know what you're talking about and really need to know what the policies are, not just give you a reactive response because you're in your feelings at the moment. Like, that's kind of the nonsense where I'm at on that. Like, no. And I think that's even with Biden. Remember when Biden went on there talking about, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. Again, because you have a platform that set up that kind of environment where you had that kind of foolery, Joe's running on there thinking, oh, I'm cool with them because I'm speaking their language. You ain't black, right? And you see how that worked. He's been catching smoke for that for the last 3 years, right? Because that platform allowed that kind of foolery to take place, because that's kind of the conversations they have any other day, right? And so here we are. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so y'all don't think it's Will Smith. Whatever. I'm convinced that's him. That sounds just like him. Y'all go back and listen to that commercial when we're done. Let's see. Oh, y'all are fighting me about this Will thing. I'm telling you, that's Will. If it ain't Will, he got a cousin or somebody. Or maybe they use that AI. Man. And the thing that makes it funny with Will Smith, how it's going back to how, like, white America loved him, right? Understand, think about how Will, I think in the black community, we loved him as an actor. If you're a hip hop head, you gave him respect for his work up until about 1988. You'll give him Summertime. By the time Big Willie Style drops, it sells 7 million copies, but he's no longer a part of the hip hop conversation. They're like, he's crossed over a little too much into pop. Cool for him, but we love the movies, the acting, and everything else like that. So when you think of how beloved he was by white America and how they move with him now, all it takes is one thing to piss off white America and they are done with you. They will act like you never existed. I think back to when MTV used to still have Wanna Be a VJ. Remember from about 98 to maybe 2001, MTV used to have the competition where people could compete to become a VJ, the video jockey and everything like that. And I will always remember there was the white lady, I don't remember what her name is. I want to say her name was Kimberly, but I think I'm mixing Kimberly up with the lady from the real world that told Brianna, let's not get ghetto. Remember that clip I played with? Like, let's not get ghetto, be normal. I think that's Kimberly. But anyway, there was a question one time, and the lady that was competing, she was in the final two. It was her, and I can't remember the white dude's name. This like white dude that was like real free-spirited. You know, probably if he worked at your job, he was only going to come one day out of the week and be late and then go straight to lunch break. One of those kind of folks, right? And the question was, if you could pick anybody to be president of the United States, who would it be? So the guy was like, nobody. Who wants a celebrity to be the president? You don't want Marilyn Monroe running the country. And then the white girl's like, I definitely say Will Smith. I think he is a role model. I think he's intelligent. He's funny. He's charming. I think he represents what America is about. Like when I say folks love them some Will Smith, so it's interesting to see how they move with him now, right? So that was Will. Yeah, they said nope. But I still say I love that Will Smith podcast. That Class of '88 podcast was really, really good. If you're a hip hop head, that is a great series of episodes to listen to. Tareen, did you hear about Lauren Boebert's son? Oh, yes, with his 22 charges, the Miss Family Values. Yeah. Did you hear about Lauren Boebert's son, the one that made out with her as a 36-year-old? Lord, I didn't know he made out with his mama. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I read that right. Did you hear about Lauren Boebert's son, the one that made out? The one that made her, that made her a 36-year-old grandmother. Okay. I thought you were saying he made out with his mom. I was like, wait a minute, hold on, I'm lost here. Yeah, I saw him in his 22 charges that he got, but you're probably not going to hear about that too much because the party of family values only pays attention to family values when it means oppressing people. Everybody else just becomes collateral, but when they got stuff going on, you don't hear about it, right? All right. God's child said, can you retire the word nonsense? Nonsense is one of my nice filler words, so I don't say the real word I want to say. I tell y'all I don't like using profanity on here out of respect for sometimes I got kids on here and sometimes there's older adults like people's grandma and stuff, so I don't want to piss them off. So I have to find nice substitute words. Y'all know I like foolery. That's my word. Foolery and nonsense. Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be BS, but it was going to be a real one. I was going to make sure I hit every syllable. Say it with conviction. Julian C said, bro, Calvin never said that he was going live. No, I made a post. The post where I announced the book club. I announced the book club podcast and the live. If you ever see one of those, hey folks, a few things, hit the show more button because normally it's a whole syllabus that drops down with a bunch of stuff on it. Let's see. Somebody said people like to act like January 6th didn't happen and downplay it. That's my beef. Like, I understand if January 6th would have been black folks, we still would have been paying on that. I mean, the way they would have had black folks locked down in their houses, we would have needed passes to leave our house. It would have been apartheid up in here. You would need a pass to go on certain sides of town. There would have been so much legislation and stuff just put into law the same day, the same night. I mean, it would have kind of been like an era of McCarthyism where all you had to be is accused of something and your livelihood would have been done. Instead, we've seen what happened. Sadly, for the folks who are now locked up because they played into the stupid games and won many stupid prizes, you know, the people who were not the orchestrators of January 6th have really been getting the brunt of the nonsense. They were what you call, you know, the folks that were fool enough to go out there and do it all. Not the ones who really organized, but the ones who were fool enough to follow and take orders. All of them are facing the consequences, right? They're getting all these different charges and sentences, and they've started the January 6th choir and all this other weird stuff. But the folks who were behind the scenes are just skating, living large, and then trying to turn these people into martyrs, talking about the January 6th hostages and political prisoners. Please. Same thing with Ashley Bobbitt or whatever, the lady who they told to stop, and she was going to, I don't know where she thought she was going. You got guns pointed at you, and they told you to stop, and she thought she was going to just still jump through the window, and I don't know where she was going after that. And then when we saw what happened to her, they wanted to paint her to be a hero and everything. Like, no, that's not how this works. And we are not going to correlate her experience with black people who are killed unarmed by the police because we get shot in the back. We get shot with our hands up. We get shot while we're cuffed, right? You literally are trying to charge Secret Service folks with weapons who are protecting the very people that make the laws of this country. So, you know, these are the most protected people in the country. And you thought for some reason, because you had a backpack on and you were in your dang, what's that game? Tomb Raider gear, that you were somehow going to make it past all these people aiming at you. Be for real. Anyway. Oh, yes, the Claw Toy Story. The Claw, literally. All right, we got to keep going. I got a lot of things to still cover. Exactly. We would have been charged with treason, everything. And if that would have happened when Obama was in office, they would have gave him an electric chair by now. They would have took Michelle out too, just because. Right? Did you hear about the U.S. Army is making cuts to thousands of jobs to restructure for future wars, according to the Associated Press? I haven't. I know the military always restructures a lot, based on whatever the climate of the world is. Yeah, I'm not excited about any world affairs. I've already told you, to me, war is just stupid because it's really just the leaders who have beef, right? The leaders are the ones who got smoke with each other. They make us go and do the fighting. Like, imagine, and this is not to take away from people who have signed up for the military or whatever. Everybody has their reasons for how they do things, and I get it. And I come from 2 military parents. I just don't like the idea of sending folks to go and die for all in the name of freedom when half the stuff folks get sent overseas for is not about protecting freedom. It's about protecting American interests or anything else like that. So I'm like, with all these world leaders that have beef with each other, y'all go lock yourselves in a room. You get out the switchblades and go for it. Like, don't bring us into that crap. Like, just think of the fact that you're literally summoned to go and shoot and bomb somebody you've never met before. And the same thing for them. They're ordered to do the same thing. You know, you got beef with people you've never met before, and they got beef with you. They've never met you before. Everybody's doing exactly what they're ordered to do, right? That's wild to me. That is wild. Like, huh. And then when you have things like the draft and all, you don't even got a choice. You're going to do it or you will be prosecuted, right? And even if you make it through prosecution, your livelihood is in question. Like, that's wild. Somebody said, what do I think about Reesa Teesa? I just talked about her in the beginning of this live. So when this replay comes on, just going back, I think it was the first topic we really jumped into. Oh, y'all are asking who's on my shirt. What is Belize Gal on here yet? That's who this was for. Just for her. This is that's Janet. That was when she had the Vegas residency. The Metamorphosis show, and I went to Vegas. So that's the shirt. That's all. I said I was gonna troll Belize Gal today, but I ain't seen her on here yet. All right, I'm going to keep it going here. Terrain, actually, that was my next topic. Mitch McConnell, let me get to him real quick. So Mitch McConnell has finally stepped down as Senate leader in regards to, right now he's minority leader because the Senate is run by Democrats right now as far as who's in charge. But he's finally stepping down, right? And what's interesting is they always step down after they've gotten what it is that they needed. Now, remember how I've been saying since probably 2018, once we started doing lives, I've been saying that a lot of these crazy folks in politics are working to cement things. They are working to lock things in so that they get what it is that they want, and then they can sleep good at night, and the rest of us have to be collateral. That's Mitch McConnell. A prime example would even be Paul Ryan, right? When we talk about those stupid, that tax code change in it was introduced in 2017, passed in 2018, right? Where the tax code changed, and that's why everybody's mad about their taxes. One of the funniest, but not really funny bits is that this was the Paul Ryan bill, right? This was his thing. It happened under the Trump administration, but Paul Ryan is the orchestrator of this tax cut. When I say cemented, this is a bill that one portion of it expires after this year, and then there's another portion that will expire in 2027. But guess what part of that bill is permanent? So in the same space, in the same token where taxes went up for the working and middle class and the working poor, taxes went up for all those people. Everybody's been penalized. It just gradually happened year after year. It didn't happen overnight. So a lot of people haven't really noticed it until this year. The one portion that was made permanent and cemented was tax cuts for guess who? The wealthy, right? So the tax cut that goes for the super wealthy, that part is permanent. But the hikes that went for everybody else, or the tax cuts that went for some groups, all of that has to be revoted on and shifted. But again, cementing the idea of making sure that the super wealthy will be okay. Paul Ryan made sure that that went through. And then what did Paul Ryan do? He resigned. He moved on. Right? Cemented what it was he wanted and bounced. John Boehner did the same thing. You know, his goal, F up everything Barack got going. We're going to be in the way. As soon as, if we can take the House in 2010 during the midterms, it's on. If we can take the Senate in 2014, it's on, right? Go and stir up all this corruption, mix up everything, and get into a space where nothing can get done. And we can just cause disruption, which will pretty much create animosity and white rage. And so you get the emergence of the Tea Party and the emergence of the birthers and the emergence of all these crazy folks. And then you get this new class of politicians where if you thought Cantor was crazy, if you thought Newt Gingrich was crazy, we had no idea we would start getting Marjorie Taylor Greens, right? We had no idea Jim Jordan would get more power. We had no idea Lindsey Graham would become even more terrible, right? And so then what happens? Boehner's up out of there. His job is done. Now that McConnell has ruined everything, and one of the main parts would definitely be the Supreme Court, right? Even though Barack was trying to put Merrick Garland in there. But still, again, we're not going to appoint a Supreme Court justice this close to an election year. We're not going to do that. Absolutely not. No. And then fast forward election year, they sure did put Amy right up in there. Amy got in there so fast. Amy had never even did any kind of what's the phrase I want to use? Litigate. It's not even litigation. She rarely had any experience in the courtroom, and they said she is so excellent. We're gonna make her not only that, but a Supreme Court judge, not even a federal judge, but Supreme Court, lifetime appointment. Put her in there, right? Crazy. So when I talk about these folks cementing stuff, that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, of course, Mitch McConnell is ready to go now. Because at this point, it's highly unlikely that they're gonna take the Senate back in 2024 or this year. So yeah, and I think Father Time is ready to call him home anyway, because just a few months ago, remember, he was stopping mid-sentence and just staring off into space, right? So I don't know, but he's up out of there. But yeah, good riddance. He might as well step down from the Senate too if you want to really help everybody out. Just go ahead and leave. Get up out of there. That's what I would say. All right, let me read a few more comments, and then I'm going to shift over to Wendy Williams. Let's see. Ashley Bobbitt, that was her name. All right, and they keep trying to paint her like she's a whatever. Foolery. Exactly, Harold. Cement things they won't even be alive to see, and we'll be left here to suffer. Again, look, in the same way we're still paying for Reagan stuff and living off of the end result of Reaganomics, which has now evolved into some of the nonsense we're living under now. Make it make sense. Is it AI, Jen? It's not AI. It looked animated to me. I remember when the picture came out, I was like, who's that? But okay. All right. It works. I should have worn another shirt from the last tour, but whatever. Let's see. All right. Wendy Williams. All right. Now, we talked about this on the last live, and that was before everything came out. And I remember specifically saying I didn't think this docuseries was a good idea because, to me, the way that it was marketed before we all saw it was this was the comeback story, her journey to coming back, right? And it was kind of painted like she's having probably alcohol problems, right? And just some depression, but they can wake her up and snap her out of it, kind of. And I had said on the last live, it wasn't a good idea because I think in those moments, when you make those kind of documentaries that show people at their absolute worst, I don't think it helps to show a documentary about their journey until they're healed, and not just newly healed, but like healed and years have gone by. I mean, years and years and years. And then you show it where, even if they were to sit and watch it, it wouldn't open old wounds and they would refer back to old habits. Right. So that was my initial opinion. And that's not just for Wendy, that's with anybody. I just think I don't like the idea of showing people in vulnerable states sometimes. Right. And so I initially wasn't planning to watch, but then I was like, I do want to see like where this all goes. And you end up watching and you start to realize, well, one, it's disturbing, especially the first episode, because right away I knew like something's not right here. Wendy is out of it. And right before I think the day before it came out, they announced she's been battling with like a certain element of dementia. I was like, okay, this makes sense, because I was like, this is a lot. And even when I watched it and I saw her name as executive producer, I was like, I don't think she knows she's doing this project. Based on what I saw, there's no way that Wendy was in her right mind to executive produce whatever we watched, because it was a lot, right? And like I said, it was almost like the documentary initially pushed all the problems as her just having an issue with alcohol. And even though that was a thing, you could clearly tell something up here was off. Like there was something more, right? She was super, super skinny. Wendy's already had a very ever-changing shape. And when she loses a lot of weight, it doesn't really look good on her when she's super, super small, right? And so she's like super, super skinny to the point where it's unhealthy. Her clothes don't fit on her properly. She's very sporadic, very forgetful. Her mood goes from 1 to 10 in 6 seconds, and then she's crying, and now she's cussing somebody out. Then she's laughing. And then it seems like sometimes Wendy would come back and she would kind of look at the camera like, can you believe this? And then she'd snap back into whatever space she was in, right? And then again, she became emotional. And to me, it just seemed like she was not there. Right. It seems like this documentary has captured everything while she is in the thick of what it is she's dealing with. And what's noticeable, it seems like she has a lot of leeches around her, people that are you just pretty much enablers, right? People that, because this is a wealthy woman, there's money to go around. And I say that because now I know she doesn't have access to it, but what I found interesting, like, she doesn't have access to her money. She can't use her credit cards. And one of the issues in this was the alcohol, right? They kept finding bottles of liquor. And I'm like, clearly somebody is supplying her with it. She doesn't even have a card to go shopping. I don't even think she would know how to go outside and go to the store at this point, based on what I've seen. Somebody is giving her half this stuff. Somebody is a yes person. And because these people are being paid through the guardianship and everything else like that, they're doing whatever it is they want to do to make sure this lady's happy. I'm like, you have too many people around you that are enablers. And I think the sad part, because her mind was so gone with what we saw, like, she still had the urge to want to get back out there and get back on TV. And that's why I knew something was off, because she kept talking about how, like, she was gonna be back on TV next week, or she was gonna do this. And I remember them talking about, like, the NBC meeting, and it made me think back. And I think I told the story before, but I remember I knew someone who had a family member that was dealing with dementia. Not the same kind that Wendy has. Wendy has hers, the brain has all these different lobes. Hers is in, like, two of the lobes that are towards the front of the brain. But I remember I was at the person's house, and it was their family member that was there that had dementia. Nobody told me that the person had dementia. And so the person kept saying, like, hey, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go home. Me being the nice person I am, I can give them a ride on my way if it's on my way. I had no idea that person had been living with that relative for, like, the last few months, and that was home. They had been brought down from where they were living, and they were going to stay with that relative while the relative would kind of nurse and take care of them. And so that person's mind was just, it would come in and out. And so, for them, it felt like, even though they had been living in this new space for a few months, it felt like they had just left home yesterday or the same day, a few hours ago. So they're ready to go. And so they would sit with their bag and their purse, like, I'm just waiting to see when we gonna go. And then the relatives were like, oh, we're about to go in a minute. We're about to go in a minute. And then that would buy them some more time. And that person would forget. And then maybe 10 minutes later, when are we leaving? And so, that stuff is, like, serious for folks. And so when I started thinking about the scene with the NBC meeting, right, I was like, I don't know that assistant's name, but I was looking at her real sideways. I'm like, now, this lady is, come on, be for real. She is not in the capacity to go meet with any execs right now. And then I noticed with the drinking, she definitely was letting Wendy get a sip or two here and there. So I was like, okay, this is real interesting. Very, very interesting. But that NBC meeting, I knew that was going to be a disaster. And I feel like what most likely happened too is, after that meeting, because I know it didn't go well, I'm sure those NBC execs probably talked to everybody across all the networks, like, y'all, something's up with Wendy. She ain't good. Like, don't even waste your time if her team calls you about whatever's happening. So I felt bad for the lady, like, dang, you got a lot going on here. And then as far as the whole guardianship bit, it reminds me so much of Britney Spears, right? And this is more so about the judge, because there's stuff coming out about this guardianship judge that, the judge is tied to a little bit of nonsense here and there, or foolery, right? And it just started making me think of, like, the Britney judge, and how that judge kept ruling against Britney after year after year after year after year. And as far as Britney, I think, had Britney been released from her conservatorship years ago, she'd be much better off than she is now. This is not to really, like, fry up Britney or nothing, but, like, I don't know if you see her Instagram every now and then, and I get it. She was under this thing for 13 years. They were giving this girl lithium and drugging her. She had to put in the IUD thing because they wouldn't let her have kids. She wasn't allowed to have a cell phone. She really wasn't allowed to date. She couldn't manage her own money. There was a whole bunch of stuff she couldn't do. And yeah, so imagine you deal with that for 13 years, right? And they've been putting you into all kind of treatment facilities and giving you all these new drugs and everything. Yeah, your brain's going to be a little scrambled up just a tiny bit. But, because now at this point, Britney is in her living room spinning every day in her underwear, every day, right? And honestly, I think Britney might be the happiest she's ever been. She's in her own world. It's Britney's world. We living in it. So kudos to her for that. But I feel like, had she had been released years earlier, before the implementation of the lithium and all that other stuff, and forcing her to do all the Vegas residencies, because it seems like that was the only time she had a little bit of free will. And her free will was when she was on the stage making everybody money. And as soon as she got back off stage, now it's back into whatever she was in, right? I feel like Wendy is almost in a similar situation, because I'm like, when I look at Britney at her worst and I look at Wendy now, I really don't think Wendy even knew what day of the week it was. Every time I saw her, I'm like, I don't think she knows what day of the week it is. And they're talking about having business meetings. And it made me think back to when they announced the podcast, because even then I was like, I don't think Wendy's going to be able to do a podcast, because based on what we've seen, I don't know about this. The documentary kind of shows that, yeah, maybe she needed to spend more time with her family, because from what I saw, it seemed like she was doing a bit better when she was around family, because they weren't letting her have alcohol. And I think the idea of being around people that are familiar kind of helped to bring people back home a little bit upstairs, just a little bit, as opposed to her being by herself in New York in some high rise with a bunch of assistants running around. And, you know, I don't know. And yeah, from what I saw, she just looks like a hurt person, right? Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, that's her karma. That's what she get because she ran her mouth all day. She was always putting people's business out there. And my question becomes, well, how much karma do y'all want the lady to have? To me, the karma would have been when the husband stepped out and had another child on the side and bought the woman a house. And then she lost her TV show. I thought that was karma enough, on top of having Graves' disease and the lymphedema, on top of being a recovering coke user and alcoholic. I was like, dang, so now she got to have dementia too, right? Y'all said, y'all drove that nail in and said, nope, keep going. So I also don't think that's also a fair argument, because I feel like when we say things like that's her karma, my question becomes, well, what about the people who have dementia, who are great people who never did anything to anyone? What about the people who have lymphedema or thyroid disease or Graves' disease, who are upstanding citizens? What about those people we love that do all the things in the community, but they sadly pass away at young ages, or they pass from cancer or something else? People that, you know, because the idea of pushing illness on somebody as punishment, I've never liked that kind of talking point, because I think what it does is it negates the experience of people who are great people, who still who succumb to these different conditions that just exist because it's a part of Mother Nature, right? So I've always been like, I don't know if I've ever liked that talking point. And yeah, when I knew Wendy was done, when there was that scene with her wanting the vape pen thing, where she had that specific store that she liked, right? That specific store that had the kind of vape pens that she wanted. And she even said, I don't have my credit cards, but they give me a discount. Go to this one. This is the one that's by the Wendy Williams show. They literally go to the place, but she doesn't recognize it. And she is cussing out that assistant, and the assistant is going back and forth trying to get the right one. And Wendy's like, nope, that's not it. That's not it. Nope, do it again. Do it again. And Wendy then cussed them out so bad. She's like, dang it, go to the place by the Wendy thing. So the driver like literally still goes to the same store, but he goes the route that Wendy would recognize on her way to the Wendy show. And they pull up at the exact same spot. And then Wendy, oh, man, I was like, this is wild. Very disturbing to watch. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, the son, I think, is a very strong person, because if that was my mama, I probably would have been on that documentary boohooing every day. But they have to kind of put up with that and deal with that. And just, man, and you're in the public eye too. Like, that's crazy. All right, I'm going to pause and read the comments. Now, as far as, I also still do believe, though, I do say what you put in, the energy you put into the universe comes back in some way or form. But again, the idea of kind of painting illness as the punishment, I don't know if I see it that way, but that's just me. You ain't got to agree. All right, let me read some comments here. Somebody said Mitch McConnell should have been retired. Yeah, he should have been retired. He should have never been elected. I was pissed when he got reelected, because you know what's funny? This is how whiteness in America works. There's so many people who have run with no platform. They have no platform, no policy, nothing that will better the people. Their platform and their policy is, the reason your life sucks is because it's everybody else's fault. And so they will kind of other all these populations. They will come up with punitive policy, things that they're going to strip away. Like, notice we're going to take away this, and we're going to challenge what's happening with women's reproductive rights. We're going to challenge affirmative action. We're going to go after diversity, blah, blah, blah. We're going to end the CRT in the schools. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to cut summer lunch programs. We're going to defund that. We're going to cut the child tax credit. They're always cutting stuff. And then they paint, and while they're cutting everything, to make sure people don't get too pissed off, you paint everybody else to be bad guys. Well, yeah, we're going to cut all this, but the crime in Chicago and the crime in New York and the crime in DC is out of pocket. People can't even see the Statue of Liberty without getting shanked 10 times. You know what I mean? And so you paint everybody to be the bad guy. You spend all of your time focusing on, certain populations and painting them to just be the scum of the earth, and they're the reason why everything is wrong. And they don't address the ever-changing global economy. They don't ever address the fact that because we are, again, in a global economy that is competitive, there's a bunch of moving parts with how economies work. And there's going to be certain seasons for some things that, it's a great time to be in that business field. And then there's moments where, okay, that's outdated, right? And so it's like you have all of that going on, but a lot of folks run on no policy, but they still get in office, mainly because they've been able to latch onto the idea of anti-blackness. And because whiteness is so strong, people will still get behind them. There is no reason why Joe and Trump should be the two candidates for both 2020 and 2024, right? But again, the idea of how to move. When it came to Joe, There were other y'all remember when it was the primaries and stuff. I was like, I am not feeling Joe. Anybody but Joe. Please, 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 anybody but Joe. Right. But then when it got down to the wire, everybody understood. As great as some of these other candidates may have been, and I still had smoke from almost all of them, Black America knew that white America is not voting for some of these candidates because they're a little too far to the left. Too far to the left scares middle America, and because that means they're in too much proximity or too close in proximity to what they call the others. That's the Black people. That's the other populations and everybody else who they think is already getting too much. So here comes Joe. Joe is safe enough for white America to get behind. So that's why he's been the person, right? He's familiar. He's been in office since 1972, so on and so forth. He becomes a candidate. For the Trump situation, right? With Trump, again, no policy, no anything. But again, whiteness is so strong. He makes white America feel good. He makes them feel like they're owed everything. And everything that's wrong in their life is the fault of everybody else, right? And because he is wealthy, allegedly, and has this brand of power and everything else, and he's going to fight for us. And, you know, if they do it to me, they'll do it to you. People get behind it. So whiteness is so strong that these are our two candidates. Interesting, right? Freaking mess. All right, let me read a few more comments, and then we're going to keep going. Somebody says, Wendy has said some vile things over the years, but I wouldn't wish what's happening to her on anyone sad to see. Because listen, I will not take that away. Yeah, Wendy has said some real out of pocket stuff over the years. I'm like, Wendy, damn. I think with Wendy, for a lot of people, she was entertaining, and people would love Wendy until she said something about their favorite entertainer. Then they'd be mad, like F you, Wendy, and then they'd be watching again the next day. Right? Wendy has done a lot of stuff. I thought it was so messed up with Method Man's wife when she kind of exposed that the wife was battling cancer at the time, and that was kind of like a family secret. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, dang. But yeah, ouch. Let's see. Now, what I found interesting, I saw a tweet where somebody was like, what did they say? Illness or not, the way Wendy treated that assistant was unacceptable. I was like, do y'all realize how dementia works? Like, it's literally sections of your brain closing up shop permanently in pieces. So there's certain things that just aren't there anymore. So yeah, if you remember, there was a part where like Wendy just started chewing out this girl that was trying to get the clothes in the closet. I'm like, damn, Wendy. Because, and I get it, you'd be like, no, you ain't talking to me, but like the person was just like, you know, condition or not, it's unacceptable. I'm like, you're holding her to a standard of somebody that does not have dementia. She currently has dementia. She's moving in a way that people that have dementia, on top of the issue with the alcohol and everything else, that's how they move. It's not something they can help. If you've ever been somebody who's had to take care of somebody that was ill, you start to see sides of them towards the end that you didn't recognize. Like my grandmother was my favorite person in the world. I don't have any bad memories of my grandmother, but I will say the very last time I saw my grandmother, because by then she had a brain tumor that was like pushing, it was behind her eye and it was pushing into and doing its tumor thing. She could have moments where she could be very, very mean. And she couldn't help it. It was just how she was. And like, she was a very strong person that didn't like help. And I always remember that time first of all, can I just say, in college, I never got to have spring breaks. I never got to have we're going to Miami, we're going to Cancun. I never got to do that because my spring breaks were always in Savannah with like family. Well, no, the first two spring breaks, I was still coaching and teaching like dance teams because that was how I made money on the side. So I think I did that for my first two spring breaks back in Washington State. But the last two for my junior and senior, I was in Savannah because by then my grandma had gotten sick and stuff. But I remember last time I saw my grandma, my cousin had picked me up from the airport. We went to her house. By then, she was starting to get paralysis. It was like back and forth. Sometimes she could move, sometimes she couldn't. And so she had sat on the couch earlier in the day. And by the time me and my cousin had got to my grandma's house, you know, she had kind of slid down on the floor. So when I came, it was kind of like her knees were on the floor and her back was on the seat of the chair. And we're like, Grandma, it's just, I'm fine. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm sitting down here because I want to sit down here. And it's like, Grandma, like nobody touch me. I'm fine. I'll get up in a minute. And it's like, but in those moments, they can't help it, right? It's just, it's how that condition works. So it's interesting to see people be like, yeah, that's not how you talk to people. I'm like, y'all, she can't help it. Like, it's the condition, right? Give people a little grace in those moments. Read a few more comments and I'm going to switch to Darryl George. Okay, we're making really good time here tonight. All right. Let's see. Okay, her name is Sean. That's the assistant. Sean, I don't trust on that. Sorry. Something don't add up with that. Yeah, I mean, Wendy would like just start crying every 2 seconds, and then she yelled, and then even that pink lipstick she had on, and she looked just washed out and pale, and wig sliding back, and I was like, that is not the Wendy I know, right? So, man, yeah. And then you lived that in front of the world. That's why I said I didn't like the idea of the it being documented. It would have been different if she had made maybe not a comeback for TV, but she was better. We knew she was well, and then it's like, well, we can see this is where she was at. But while you're still in the thick of it, I don't know. Yeah. Somebody said bad things happen to good people too. Exactly. That's how I look at it. Cause this, yeah, man. Oh, don't remind me about that Aaliyah biopic. That was Lord. I'd be pissed if I was an Aaliyah fan because y'all might not ever get another movie. They tried that. Man. All right. Joe Mario said karma wasn't designed to be nice. Ouch, ouch, ouch. No Name Face said my grandmother had Alzheimer's and dementia, and it's super hard to see your loved one like that. It is because like my grandma towards the end, I was like, Lord, grandma, man, yeah, that was a little tough. But I will say, I knew her mind was good though, because like the very last time I saw her, she gave me the middle finger and $20, and that was kind of how we already communicated. That was how she showed us love. So I knew she was still somewhat okay. But then she passed like 2 months later. But yeah. Calvin, can you talk about Tennessee Republicans? They're on some not people in Tennessee. Can y'all really pay attention to what's going on with that state house? I just saw that they had the legislation where they're trying to push a piece of legislation where if somebody is ousted, they cannot be put back in office even if they're elected. And you know who that's for. That's for those 3 that they ousted the last time, or really 2, because 2 had to be reelected. One was able to, I forgot why the white lady was able to come back in, but they know what they're doing. And it goes back to cementing. Cementing is all about little tidbits of policy here and there that set precedents that you can't go back on. That's what we're literally seeing in so many different spaces, right? Speaking of cementing, let's talk Darryl George, right? I want to read the article first, and we're going to talk. This is about the kid who, excuse me, burping, sorry, who, that must have been homage to Wendy Williams, because, you know, that's what she stayed doing on her show. The kid who has been suspended because of his locks. So I want to read the article, and then we'll talk. All right. The real question in Darryl, and this is coming from Forbes, right? The real question in Darryl George's case is why schools think student hairstyles are their concern, right? School dress codes are back in the spotlight after a high-profile court case, but the real question is why schools think student hairstyles are any of their concern. Darryl George last week lost the latest stage of his legal battle after a Texas judge ruled his school's dress code did not break a statewide law prohibiting racial discrimination based on hair. The 18-year-old was removed from class and put in isolation and subsequently suspended from Barbers Hill Independent School District after he refused to cut his braided locks, a hairstyle with cultural significance in some Black communities. His family says they plan to appeal, although in the meantime, George remains suspended from school. The school policy states, male students' hair must not extend below the top of a t-shirt collar or be gathered or worn in a style that would allow their hair to extend below the top of a t-shirt collar, below the eyebrows, or below the earlobes when let down. Emphasis on when let down. Pay attention to that part, right? Barbers Hill successfully argued that this did not violate the Crown Act, designed to prohibit racial discrimination based on hairstyles, on grounds that the act does not specify or mention hair length. For some reason, it's about adhering to the school's rules, but this just begs the question of why is this particular rule existing? And underlying, this is the question of why schools are concerning themselves with their students' hairstyles at all. In a more conformist era, there may have been a reason to encourage male students to keep their hair short, but it's hard to justify preparing students for a world that ended half a century ago. There are legitimate reasons why schools can be justified in taking an interest in students' hair. Styles that denote gang affiliation is one. Outlandish hairstyles that could cause disruption is perhaps another. But these are very much the exception. These rare cases aside, it's hard to find a sensible reason for prohibiting hairstyles, and in their absence, sticking to the rule becomes an end in itself. And imposing such policies leaves schools vulnerable to the charge of racial discrimination. It's surely no coincidence that students who fall foul of school hairstyle policies often are Black. In 2020, for example, a federal judge, pay attention to this part, ruled that a hairstyle code that saw 2 students sanctioned was discriminatory. Both students were Black, and the district involved again was Barbers Hill, same district that we're talking about now. In the UK, a number of schools and businesses have signed up for the Halo Code, which aims to protect hairstyles associated with racial and ethnic and cultural identities, introduced the following series of legal challenges against school hairstyle policies that led to Black students being sanctioned. Although the code is voluntary, Britain's Equality Watchdog has warned schools that banning hairstyles without allowing exceptions or religious or racial grounds is likely to be unlawful. Back in the US, a number of states have banned hair discrimination following incidents where Black students were penalized, although the efforts to introduce federal bans have yet not succeeded. But even without a federal ban, it is hard to see the justification for blanket bans on hairstyles. And if schools are going to insist that students follow the rules, then it is on them to make sure the rules are reasonable and fair. So going back, remember how they kept talking about, how the hair is when it's let down. The reason that's a stupid rule is because here we go. If I pull this down, right, it's to the shoulder, and this is the back. This ain't even the long part, right? If I pull here, it comes down here. So like the idea of saying if you untie the hair, it sits on the shoulders, that depends on the kind of hairstyle you have and the kind of texture you have. If these were locks, they'd be sitting right now, right? But my hair kind of I let it kind of coil and just do its own thing and just kind of be a little free. So one, there's no consistency in the freaking law, right? And this goes back to what I was saying about the idea of cementing, right? This is what I'm talking about. People keep thinking, the reason I go so hard about really staying tuned into politics, it's not just about who's running for president. It's not about who's running for Congress and Senate. It is, but when we get to that local level and these school boards and all these locally elected positions, these are the things that affect us directly. These are the things that show up on your doorstep, right? We already talked about the situation with McGraw-Hill and how textbooks are sold in the United States. That's at a local level. Yes, they make their books, but by the time these books are sold to the school districts, that's coming from different panels of regular everyday citizens who have been elected into positions to dictate and determine what will be taught in the schools. And these are people that are not even, scholars or people that center on education. These might be everyday folks. They own a flower store and they say, hey, I want to be a part of what's going to be taught in schools. And then boom, this is how our books are sold to our school districts, right? So yeah, when you get a chance, Google and just look into how curriculums are sold to school districts and, everything like that. There's so many layers behind that. So understand, like, when we're talking about that idea of cementing, right, you're seeing now this emergence and reinvention of punitive policy that always affects Black people every single time. We're always first in line every single time, right? And so just understand, my beef too, when we talk about these dress codes and hair codes, because some people are like, well, if they have a code, why can't you just adhere to it? And my question becomes, well, oftentimes that code is drafted through the lens of who? Usually white conservatives, right? Usually through a lens of whiteness. And so somehow hairstyles that somehow touch your shoulders for males are now distracting and so on and so forth. And this kid's hair has been tied up. He's kept his tied up, and they're saying even if it's tied up, no, because when you untie it, it's going to fall down to here. So now we're literally jumping on what is foreseeable and making policy on what they think is foreseeable. And for me, I think that's where it's like you just see the goalposts continuing to move, right? Just a lot of nonsense. It goes back to that video we did where there was a wrestler that had the freestanding locks. And, the ref was like, nope, he can't wrestle. Now, he's been wrestling and doing all these rounds and matches for years, but this specific ref was like, nope, absolutely not. His hair is not safe. It's a violation. And he's like, he can put it under the cap. Nope, got to cut it. And so what ends up happening, he cuts his hair to do the match, which if there's a moment where I wish I would have been in the audience, because that kid would not have to cut his locks, because I'm like, hell no. And it pissed me off because I did a video on it already, so I won't rehash the whole conversation. But what pissed me off the most with that video is you have his team, right? He's like a biracial kid, I think. But you have the team, they're all white. They're, encouraging him. The lady is like cutting the locks while, because there's also a time, right? This needs to be cut in like the next 3 minutes or he's disqualified. He loses the match, right? And so his whole team, man, you're so brave, bro. You're so brave, man. You're doing this for us, man. You're doing this for us, man. And the white lady's like, just cutting with no love, just jacking the boy's head up just so he could wrestle. And I'm like, this is how systems work, right? And then the crowd is giving him a standing ovation and stuff. I'm like, no, F every last one of y'all in here. Because if y'all had any integrity, y'all would have stood up in solidarity with this kid and said, no, he shouldn't have to cut his locks, especially if he's been wrestling with this for the longest and he has a cap he can put on and everything else like that. And y'all just, everybody, again, that idea of, well, we want to get what's ours. We want to see our school win. So yeah, let him cut his hair. I understand, like, I'm a big, like, hair person. Like, I love hair. Hair takes... It's for me, it's part of my personality, right? It takes years to grow and stuff. So all of the years that this kid is put into the locks and he had to just chop it all off so he could do a 3-minute wrestling match. Like that's how this stuff works when we're talking punitive policy, right? Just the nonsense. I think I told the story before. I had a classmate I went to Howard with. Back in the day, there used to be a Ruby Tuesday in Columbia Heights, and she applied to work there. Now she used to have the micro braids, the really skinny braids like Moesha or Brandy on the TV show. And they told her that they had a no braids policy, so they wouldn't hire her. And the reason was because of sanitary reasons. And I'm like, now, when is the last time you went and got food and saw a micro braid sitting in your soup, right? Now, I've seen some very thin hair, very, very thin blonde strands in my food before. But, the idea of it braids are unsanitary. You would think actually hair that is kind of locked and tied into one place is probably least likely to fall out into food in comparison to hair that's freestanding or whatever, even if you put it into a net. So you see a lot of the nonsense. Thank you, Mary X. Just want to support. I appreciate it. And so you see like a lot of these rules are always rooted in anti-Blackness all the time, right? And so what I find even funnier, we're now in this era where you're watching common sense laws kind of be gutted, all in the name of parents' rights. Now we're starting to see a measles outbreak because, kids are now being exempt from getting their measles vaccine because it's all about the parents' rights and the freedom and blah, 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 blah. And so it's parents' rights and freedoms with measles that can spread to tons of children. Measles, a thing that used to kill people. Now we're now seeing polio show up in Oregon, right? All these different things. And in that moment, it's all about freedom. But now when it comes to hair, that's where the line is drawn. They need to comply. Where are the parents' rights then? We're picking and choosing when parents' rights matter, right? And so the difference between measles and some hair, that hair is not affecting anybody. Hair is not bothering nobody. Measles, contagious, Ron Isley, all right? Dang, man. And so it's just like the nonsense, and that's there to keep people in their place, right? And so when you think even deeper, what is his punishment? His punishment is a lack of education. His punishment means he's in-school suspension. Suspension means you can't participate on the track team if you want to do track. You can't participate in whatever after-school clubs are there. I don't even think you can run for office for like student body government when you have in-school suspension. Understanding in-school suspension is going on your record. When you apply to college and they say, have you been suspended for anything? And you say, yes, it goes on there. All that plays a role, right? And so we are pretty much seen as the problem. And so their way of handling that is making you comply. And when you don't comply, we're going to take everything we can take away from you. So understand that this is rooted a lot deeper than just hair and complying with a dress code, right? The goal is to break us down into a space where we're tolerable enough for white folks. That's always been the goal. Break us down to where people can tolerate us enough. And in order for us to be tolerable for white folks, we have to just pretty much not exist. Or we have to be a carbon copy of what it is they want from us, how they want to see us, how they want us to move. This is why people get nervous about conversations on race, because if you want an honest opinion on race, who do you go to talk to? Black folks, because we can talk about it all day. There's a reason why there's this anti-CRT movement and blah, 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 blah. I just watched some interview with RFK Jr. He's also running for president too. And they started talking about the whole CRT thing and race and all that. And he gave that same kind of Nikki Haley approach where, we need to just encourage kids to be the best and blah, blah, blah. We don't need to always spend time talking about the past and so on and so forth because it makes them vengeful and it makes other people uncomfortable. And I'm like, y'all will water down everything Black in order to make sure that whiteness is coddled and protected, right? It's a way of absolving white people of being responsible for anything in regard to how people are oppressed globally or within this country, right? If you can absolve responsibility by changing the narrative, we're just not going to talk about history. We're going to ban books, right? We're going to ban libraries. We're going to prosecute librarians. We're going to get rid of different programs and this, that, and the third. That way people can't even have a conversation about it, right? Y'all just need to shut up and be happy. We're all Americans. We need to just be happy. Be happy you're here. Because you always notice the word divisive only shows up when it's like white people in charge that are trying to stop something that benefits other groups of people. Then everything's divisive, right? And so again, that conversation of cementing, we're seeing so much nonsense, right? This even goes back to, again, cementing. I'm going to stay on cementing for a while because that's going to be the theme of the rest of this video. I want to go to Mississippi really quick, right? I want to read this article and then we're going to talk. Getting to Mississippi, MISSISSI, PPI. All right. Mississippi senator wants to close 3 state universities by 2028. A bill has been introduced into the Mississippi Senate that will call for the closure of 3 state-funded universities by June 30th, 2028. The bill was filed by Senator John Polk, Republican from Hattiesburg, last week. Did not specify which of these states' 8 universities are to close. The bill designates the Institutions of Higher Learning's Board of Trustees to choose 3 universities to close in 2028. I want y'all to also take note of who sits on those boards. That's all I'm saying. The board would have to report to its decision by law, or to law. They would have to report the decision to lawmakers by June 30th of 2025. The bill would designate IHL to use factors such as enrollment data, degrees offered, economic impact, services offered, and any research that schools conduct serving the state to determine which schools should close. As the start of the 2023 fall semester that began in August, there were more than 77,000 students enrolled in the state's 9 public universities, according to the IHL enrollment report. Of them, the 3 least attended, according to IHL data from the fall, are Delta State University with 2,700 students, the Mississippi University for Women, which has 2,200 students, and Mississippi Valley State University, which has 2,100 students. Once the IHL closes those schools, the bill proposes it would then move to sell those lands and buildings to nonprofits or gift them to other state agencies. Any research laboratories that are state-sponsored could also be given to other IHL schools or closed indefinitely. All right. IHL spokesperson John Sewell, whatever his name is, Sewell, told the Clarion Ledger the Board of Trustees is aware of the bill and is following it closely, but it does not have an official commitment at this time. Pope did not immediately respond to requests for a comment on the bill. Public university enrollment figures. Here's a look at the fall 2023 enrollment figures by school according to the IHL. Mississippi State University, 22,000. University of Mississippi Oxford, 21,000. University of Southern Mississippi, 13,000. Jackson State University, 6,500. UMMC Jackson, 3,100. Alcorn State University, 2,800. Delta State University, 2,700. Mississippi University for Women, 2,200. Mississippi Valley State University, 2,100. Understand, of the 8, there are 3 HBCUs in that mix. And I think we need to really start paying attention to what the pattern has been in everything. We also just saw that one university that just lost their accreditation because of financial issues. What school is that? I want to make sure. Let me see. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I just saw the article for it right before I went on this live. I didn't get a chance to jump into it. St. Augustine's University lost their accreditation, not because the school is not, adequately doing what it needs to do academically, but because of financial issues, right? And so understand that based on what we've seen, especially coming out of Mississippi, whether it's the water crisis, whether it was them trying to make a new police district specifically to police one demographic of the population in the Jackson area differently than the rest of the state, we've seen a certain pattern. So my question becomes, how likely is it that those HBCUs are on the chopping block? That becomes my question, right? What is the likelihood of them saying, well, we're going to get rid of these 3? And then the justification will be, well, it's because of this, or it's because of that, or so on and so forth. Like, we've seen certain patterns. When I'm talking about, again, cementing, this is what we're talking about. Understand, and this is why I keep saying with politics, a lot of people are living in the now, right? They get pissed off about something. They say, I'm tapped out. I don't care no more. After that, I'm not doing it no more. I'm done. Politics is a long game, right? I think the people that usually are the most vengeful stay in it the longest, right? I think that's why the GOP has been getting everything they wanted, even when it comes to the conversation around women's reproductive rights and Roe v. Wade and everything like that. That was a 60-year battle, right? And so I think you have to almost look at politics in this country like if you have your 401k, right? It's normally correlating with the stock market if you have some money in the stock market with your 401k, right? And so imagine if you withdrew your 401k the minute the stock market went down by 200 points because you panicked, right? Now, and like if you pull out of your 401k before, the 59.5 rule, then automatically, there's a penalty of what, 30%? And then it's still taxed and everything like that. So I feel like I need folks to start looking at this political game as almost like Wall Street or when you have stuff in the stock market. The longer you stay committed and the longer you kind of lock in, the better results you get, right? Because a lot of times the stock market is volatile. It's up and down, up and down, up and down, up and up, down. If you keep jumping off each wave, every time there's an up, there's a down, you're never going to get to anywhere, right? Because you haven't been in long enough to let it work. You haven't let your money work for you yet, right? And so I think that's one of the issues that we've seen a lot of people kind of fall into politically, where because there's so much disappointment, because again, you do get your feelings hurt in this a lot, right? You do want to believe in some folks and then they turn out to not be ish, right? And it goes back to the conversation of politics is full circle. Now, at least since I started doing these lives, I've been saying I would like to see us push more candidates that we like out there. That hasn't really been a thing. So then we end up with candidates that we're not crazy over, but then we want to hold them to these standards that we know they're not going to meet because that was never their MO anyway, right? And so, like, understand there's so much happening And it's not just with our law. It's you're seeing it in education. You're seeing it in healthcare. You are seeing it in everything, in food, everything you can think of. You keep seeing it in. And so when folks be like, "I'm staying home," I'm like, "All right, I know you pissed off right now, but you're gonna be even more pissed off in about 6 more years when whoever is up in there and their policy finally locks in and becomes, our everyday experience." But whatever, right? And so that shifts me to another conversation because I'm going to stick with this cementing thing. I heard a comment from David Banner the other day where he was pretty much saying that he thinks HBCU should be mandatory for Black folks. And what I want to say to that, because I mean, the point he was making, I can agree with some of what he was saying. It was a deeper conversation. He kind of was just talking about how, like, we send a lot of our best to majority institutions and then be mad at certain things. So there's some extent, to an extent, there's some things I hear, but I've always said this, and I've done a video on this before. When it comes to the conversation of HBCU versus majority institution, one, our voices are needed in both. I've always felt that way because in the same way where, yes, I love the idea of an HBCU in a Black collective, in a Black space where that can just be a space for healing and camaraderie and so on and so forth. The idea of letting white folks just have their own spaces that serve as higher institutes of learning and research and everything else like that, to me, is dangerous if you don't have additional voices in there, because that element of white nationalism, anti-Blackness, and white supremacy are still a thing. So a prime example, if you have a university that's a research institution, that's a majority institution, let's say there's none but white folks that go there and they're studying sickle cell, right? Now, we know sickle cell disproportionately affects Black people, right? But if you have people who don't really have that narrative in there, that don't come from a family where they know somebody that has that experience, the question becomes, how are they going to move on certain things, right? There's a reason why there are certain medicines that work for one collective and not for others, mainly because others were not considered in the trials. Others were not considered in the test runs. Others were not considered in the research. It was centered on one group of people. And I think when you have that group of people who get to be the heart of that campus and the heart of how the world works, I think it's a dangerous and slippery slope when you let white folks collectively get together unchallenged, where they don't have to challenge themselves to see things through a scope of other lenses. Because understand that in HBCU, people think, oh, it's just the blackity black Wakanda, blackity black this. Oh no, HBCU is another conversation. Yes, you have that camaraderie, you have that, this, that, and third, but you're still learning about everything and everybody else. I will never forget at Howard when we were learning African philosophy. Before we could even get to African philosophy, we spent 2 chapters on Western philosophy or European philosophy. And everybody in the class like, why did we gotta learn about them? And then the way that the professor was able to bring it back full circle, the argument was like, pretty much what the professor did was, we had to learn about Aristotle and all of them and how great they were and blah, 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 blah. Everybody in the class is like, when we get to the African part. So after we've gotten all this stuff about Aristotle and the accolades and how he was the great thinker and blah, 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 then we get to, hey, where did these people go to study? And where did they get their information from? And how were they able to translate the information into the spaces that we see it in today? And it brought it back to how, okay, what they went and taught themselves, they got from us, right? That kind of stuff. So you definitely need voices and the different shifts on how to present information. And I think it's dangerous when you just have institutions that are centered on whiteness, because whiteness centers itself and nobody else. The experience of an HBCU, we have to look at things globally. We have to look at things through the lens of how do you matriculate in a world that is anti-Black? That's what the HBCU part comes in. It kind of helps you prepare to get you into space. Because I've already said, even in the 2 fields of work that I've worked in, nothing has ever been harder than some of them experiences at Howard. Like if there were days where I needed to rip my hair out or just cry a bit, it was at Howard. It was not at work, right? And so I would say, like, in that conversation, our voices are needed at both, right? And then it gets deeper, because then when we talk about the conversation of funding, right? Well, before I even get to that, I think also there's only so many HBCUs that are here. And I think in that conversation, you also have to think about the experience of people who live in areas where there are not HBCUs, right? I chose to relocate from Washington State to DC because I wanted to go to one. Fortunately, I was blessed enough to be in a position where my parents had it in regard to helping me travel sometimes if I needed a plane ticket. Understand that Seattle to DC plane ticket was like $600 or $700 every time, right? So not everybody's going to have the luxury to travel 3,000 miles away to, a school in Texas or in Alabama or in Delaware or wherever else, right? Everybody doesn't have that luxury, right? And then the other challenge is, because HBCUs don't sometimes get the funding that they get, a lot of students who would love to go to one can't go because they didn't get a good financial aid package. Unfortunately, it's the majority institutions that have the better packages. But let's get into that, because I want to read this other article when we're talking about funding for HBCUs. And this goes back to, again, our conversation of cementing, right? Let me pull this up here. This article is coming from NPR. and this is actually a recent one too. This is only from October. HBCUs have been underfunded by $12 billion, federal officials reveal. Federal officials told 16 states that they have been underfunding their historically black colleges and universities by some $12 billion. Tennessee State University being the biggest loss, or having the biggest loss. Ari Shapiro is the host. Okay, this is like podcast type thing too. All right. Anyway, let me read. 16 states have been underfunding their historically black colleges. I'm sorry, let me start over. 16 states have been underfunding their historically black land grant colleges for decades. The shortfall is more than $12 billion, according to a recent analysis from the U.S. Department of Education. Tennessee underfunded its land grant HBCU more than any other state in the report. Now students there are amplifying their call for the state to pay that money back. From a member of the station WPLN in Nashville, Alexis Marshall reports. We're inside. This is actually like an audio, so I'm just reading it as if you were hearing it on the radio. This is Alexis Marshall talking. We're inside a gymnasium at Tennessee State University. The school's Grammy Award-winning aristocrat of bands is playing. Students hand out free T-shirts and signs that say, "We've been cheated." There's a DJ and some fiery speeches coming from the stage. An identified person. Say we got the power. Do you believe we got the power? We're going to get it back rightfully what's ours. Marshall. All of this is meant to hype up a crowd for a town hall that's about to start. University President Glenda Glover concisely explains the goal. Now this is Glenda talking. No underfunding. That's the agenda. That's the entire agenda. Now this is Marshall. For TSU, that means reclaiming a staggering $2.1 billion. That's the money the federal government says Tennessee owes to the historically black university. The feds compared per student spending at HBCUs and predominantly white land grant institutions. They found a huge gap. By law, they're supposed to be funded equitably, but that's basically never happened, says Leoratha Williams, a history professor at TSU. Now, this is Leoratha talking. But it's very clear to anybody that pays attention to the history of states and their relationship with these institutions that they were never intended to be equal to their white counterparts. Now, this is Marshall talking. Now that the federal government is asking states to make up for the funding discrepancies, Williams says he's not optimistic. For starters, Republican Governor Bill Lee has not said whether he accepts the $2.1 billion figure from the feds. Instead, he pointed to a $250 million state invested. I'm sorry, he pointed to $250 million the state invested in the school last year. $2.1 billion that is owed versus we gave y'all $250 million. Shut up and be happy, right? And Republican Senator Bo Watson, who chairs the Ways and Means Committee, says he's not buying it. He's not buying it. Again, the leverage is in how he feels. This is Bo talking. We will have dialogue with our federal partners. Well, of course we will, but I'm not sure that their numbers are always as factual as they would for you. I'm sorry, or as factual as they would like for you to believe. So we will continue to use our analysis as our guide. Cementing, okay? We're going to make our own rules, okay? This is like when the police forces investigate themselves after they done shot and killed somebody. We investigated ourselves. We found we did nothing wrong, right? Now, this is Marshall. The state admits to underfunding its HBCU to the tune of $500 million, a quarter of the federal figure, but the school is not backing down on the issue. At the town hall, student Sean Wembley Jr., who sits on the university board, encouraged his peers to join the fight. This is Sean speaking. This is more than just a $2.1 billion issue. It's more than that. This is about our community. This is a story that's been written 400 years ago and still continues to this day. Now, this is Marshall. Wembley says that it's hard to imagine how much $2.1 billion could have transformed his school. Wembley again. And we're left to sit here as students, as alumni, as faculty, and wonder, what could our university have been? This is Marshall closing it out. This is the question HBCUs in 15 other states may be considering. The feds say North Carolina A&T, one of our largest HBCUs, and Florida A&M, another one of our largest HBCUs, are also owed about $2 billion apiece. So when we're talking about cementing, this is what we're talking about, right? Discrepancies in policy, discrepancies in funding. What happens when you underfund a school? We go back to what we saw with the school that just got or just lost their accreditation. They were having a problem making payroll. That was one of the main reasons why they lost accreditation. So when you have schools that are not even being properly funded, what happens, right? So that's kind of like what we're looking at. And so when you go back to even Mississippi, you have you have 3 HBCUs that are possibly on the chopping block. And so they play these mind games and say, oh, it's just policy. And so you saw what Bo said. Whoa, these are the numbers they gave, but our numbers say something else. Of course, now we're going from a conversation of federal to state. So now all of a sudden, the state wants to argue about what the federal government is saying. Like, you see how this starts to fold and go into different spaces. And so if anything, going back to David Banner's point, like, I totally love the fact of being pro HBCU, but I'm also against the idea of forcing people into spaces if they don't have, like, I've seen 3 patterns this week, and I'm going to get to another one of them. the three patterns I've seen, or the three things I've seen from three different people that all follow a certain pattern, they all fall in the space of taking away the agency from Black people to make choices for themselves. That's what I've seen. The David Banner conversation saying it should be mandatory that we go to HBCUs. If you want to put something mandatory in regard to empowering Black students, I think we need to really fight and shift what's happening in K through 12. Because even when it comes to HBCUs or college, everybody can't afford to go to college anyway. College is not for everybody. However, everybody is mandated to go and get an education, at least in K through 12, even if it's homeschool. I think our fight right now should really be taking back what's been stripped away in the K through 12 curriculums, making sure there's equity in regard to what's happening in our public schools. Again, this whole movement of school choice is really a thing to privatize education and prioritize wealthy students, and people can profit and make a bunch of money off of privatizing our public education. And the more that we privatize public education, the more money that is pulled from our public schools, and the schools become more and more destitute, more underperforming. You keep closing and closing and closing and closing, and before you know it, your only options are those private schools, are those magnet schools, are those charter schools, and those schools have become so exclusive that now you have to have a lottery system to get into those schools. And they claim that the lottery system is not rigged, but here we are. We've seen what's been happening in places like a DC or New York, or a lot of places that have these lotteries for your different schools and so on and so forth. But anyway, understand the fight should be getting equity within our public school system, because public schools right now are going through an S-word show, right? That Betsy DeVos being put over education under the Trump administration was intentional. Putting a woman who's never been in public school, who never had to pay for public, who grew up rich with a silver spoon in her mouth, and putting her over the livelihood of all of American children and their education, understand that was a business move, right? And so going back to David Banner's point, yes, I love the idea of supporting HBCUs, but I don't like the idea of this thing where we're taking agency. So that was his argument, HBCUs mandatory. And then I saw the Killer Mike interview where he was talking about, okay, for Black men that get Black girls pregnant, they should automatically go to trade school for 2 years. They get shipped off to trade school automatically, it's because they get jobs, blah, blah, blah. Now, I guess there's no conversation about helping to raise the child the first 2 years. They're going to be in trade school. And then he said that's going to pause the child support conversation. And then if they marry a girl, then they get another check. And I'm like, so now we're in a space where, okay, you get a girl pregnant, and now you must be shipped off to trade school. So now we're getting into the space where the purpose of Black males is specifically to make sure the economy stays afloat. Now, we need to put you into fields that are going to be there. You don't get agency on what it is you want to do or how you want to move, or even if you are an upstanding young man and you got your stuff together, but hey, you got your girl pregnant, so on, so be it. Nope, you're getting shipped off to trade school to get one of these trades, as if half of these trades aren't currently in danger from AI to begin with, right? So you have that going, right? And then that video was interesting enough because he was like talking to some kids. And mind you, his idea of, shipping everybody off to trade school when you get a girl pregnant, he was like pushing to try to make that become policy. He's talking to a state official about this. It's like, and that was kind of one of my beats. I'm like, y'all are coming out here with all this stuff and you're trying to mandate and push things as policy with no trial and error, with no research, with no studies, just ego and ideas. And the fact that you have a following, it must mean I'm 100% right. So this is what we're going to do. I got the solution for what's going to happen. So that was his thing. So that's example number 2 of, again, that idea of taking agency away. And then I promise y'all, I'm not trying to start a beef with this man, but he just keeps saying things I don't like. I'm going to just tell y'all what the person said. Y'all can figure out who I'm talking about. And then this individual, and I think this was in response to the Cam Newton thing, he has this tweet where he's talking about, if more Black boys were in business camps instead of football camp, it would end Black poverty. I'm like, y'all just... Let me take a sip before I respond. All right, so here's my thing. I'm trying to make sure because God, anyway, so here's my thing. When it comes to that argument, the reason I don't like that specific individual is because every time they have anything to say about Black people collectively, they stay talking down to us like we're a bunch of idiots. They stay speaking to us like all of the problems we have collectively are exclusively our fault because of the choices that we make. And now we're in a space where you're placing the burden of correcting 400 years of the oppression and even the systemic oppression that's still here today that we're witnessing, even through some of the topics that we just talked about on this live. Now you want to put that burden on Black children to fix. Kids, right? Now, listen, I get it. There's an unhealthy obsession with a lot of our children wanting to be athletes. But unfortunately, for a lot of us, for a lot of kids, that was the only example for a lot of kids that, in that idea of like prosperity. Those were the only examples sometimes. That's what they saw. So yeah, a lot of kids love football. They love sports. When I ran the center with the kids, I had tons of boys that wanted to be NFL athletes, that wanted to play soccer, that wanted to be in NBA. And I said, I love it. In addition to that, let's talk about what happens when that career ends. Because I always told them I was never a dream killer. I never said it's not going to happen. You know, I would share the stats and the numbers and saying there's only 150 slots in the NFL draft. So when we talk about 1 million high school athletes, and then it drops down to 20,000 college athletes. And then by the time you get to the NFL, they have this huge draft and they take in all these people and then they chop. And when it's all said and done, there's only 150 spots. We can have that conversation. But with the kids, I always would say what I want you to also think about, in addition to this booming career you're going to have as an athlete, what happens when that career ends? You know, for the NFL, NBA, a lot of times people are only in the league for a handful of years, unless they're a superstar. And so when that handful of years has come and gone, what's next? I want you to think bigger. I want you to think in addition to, I'm not going to say you can't do it, but I want you to also start planning what else are you going to do while you're, you know, prepping to do that. Because what happens if you break your leg? What happens if, you know, you're doing college ball and your leg snaps in half your senior year? And draft is no longer an option. Like, I want you to have additional opportunities. I want you to be in a space where you're ready to be prepared for whatever comes. And if it's the successful athletic career, wonderful, so be it. Just make sure you shout me out when you make it. But at the same time, any event that you have a change of heart or the world, because I've always said, even with the best of plans, the world gets in the way. If the world chooses to get in the way, I want you to be in a good spot. So going back to this individual, what I don't like is he's coming into the space where, again, he thinks all of us are stupid, even though he's the same person who told all of us to put our life savings into Bitcoin, right? Only to watch Bitcoin be a roller coaster, go up and down. And I'm sure there's lots of people who lost everything following behind that kind of nonsense. But it's just like, again, I don't see the correlation in making young Black boys not get to play football in the summer because that's what they like to do, because that's what their friends are doing and they want to do it as well, and saying, no, you need to go to business camp. I understand everybody's not going to be a business person. I need us to get out of the habit of thinking everybody's supposed to have a business. That is not everybody's purpose. Not everybody is going to be the business owner. Like, I'm a very creative person. I'm not really business savvy, right? That's not really my lane. I'm pretty decent with money, but like my lane, I love to create. That's my thing. I would not do well as a business owner because I'm too nice, right? People would be coming in, I'd be giving folks discounts, and every time somebody had a sob story and my cow died, so I won't be able to pay you today. If you can just let me get to it, I'll be the person. Okay, here we go. You know, just pay me back in increments. And I have 15,000 people on payment plans that ain't paying back, right? So I know that that's not my gift, you know? And so it's like my beef is the correlation of young Black youth playing a sport. You're pretty much saying that they're not able to do multiple things at once. That's the beef that I have. This idea of always painting us to just be so inferior and so uneducated and so unaware, no self-awareness that, you know, we need you to remind us that our 10-year-old needs to be in business camp instead of football camp. When in reality, a lot of us can't even afford to put our kids in football camp anyway. And those business camps, oh, they cost big money. And so even when we get to that, the idea of saying, you know, if you put all these kids in the camps, fast forward a generation, now we got business leaders, that's going to pull us out of poverty. It's not. Because our policy keeps us in poverty. Not our policy, but the policy that we live under, that they keep implementing. We have spent how many times talking about the Fearless Fund? Literally a fund where you have Black individuals, specifically Black women, who say, we are going to help these Black businesses get on their feet. We're going to give them grants and money and you know, help them get some seed money so they can build. And what happened? Now it's in the court system. It's deemed as discriminatory against Asians and white people. Right, mind you, do I gotta pull up the numbers again? Y'all know I got it. 0.00006% of. Actually, let me make sure I'm saying this right. I don't want to get it wrong, but I know it's a few zeros in there. Hold on, let me pull it up. Let me see. 0.39%. 0.00006. I know it's on here. Fearless. Find it. Oh, I was right. 0.0006% of all venture capitalist funding went to Black women business owners before the Fearless Fund started, right? And mind you, their grants, like we said, these are just $20,000 grants. $20,000 is not a lot of money. It's really not. To, you know, as an individual, yeah, I would love to get $20,000 tomorrow. But for a business that has payroll, that has to enroll their people into health benefits and insurance, inventory, whatever it is, like, let's think about it. Okay, I'm opening, what am I opening to? I'm opening a bit, because I love tea so much, I'm gonna open a tea store, right? to start this business, right? First of all, I need seed money just to find a place to do the business. Let's say I had already been doing it online through Instagram. Maybe I was selling my tea on YouTube, right? I'm selling for the price. You just put a little cash up in the super live chat and I'll mail the tea to you, right? And I've had enough success. Now I want to have a brick and mortar building, right? And so now I need the money to get a building. I live in DC. You're not getting any kind of building in here, even for like you, as far as owning, forget about it. So I'm probably going to need to rent, right? So if I find a place that I can rent, who knows? Maybe I can find a place that will let me rent a storefront for under $3,000 a month, God willing, right? So I'm already going to need some money for the rent. I'm going to need money for the wholesale. I'm going to need money to get the buyers. I'm going to need money for the insurance. I'm going to need the money to make sure that I can get the LLC. I'm going to need the money to trademark anything that I have going on. I'm going to need to get the money to do the research to figure out what teas am I going to order, what else. And I probably just can't sell tea. I probably need to sell coffee mugs and a few other things to make sure that you have additional things just in case tea all of a sudden dies, right? So I got to do all that. And I can't do it all by myself. I'm going to need to bring one or two people on to help me, right? I just can't work the shift every day by myself. I'm going to need somebody there. So now I got to hire people. I got to have enough money to make the payroll. If these people are full-time, and especially in a place like DC, I think minimum wage now is $15 or $16, right? So I got to make sure I'm bringing in enough to give them the minimum wage or whatever. And they also need to get benefits if they're full-time. They're going to need sick leave, vacation, all that stuff like that. There's so many things that you would need to consider. So 20,000 goes very quickly in that situation, right? And so even in that moment where you have people who have done the work, because we're in this era where a lot of people are like, you just need to work harder. You're just not working hard enough. A lot of the reasons, yeah, Calvin, you can talk about the system, but when are we going to step up? We have been stepping up. And every time we step up, guess who shows up first in line to cut it back down? Every single time. So literally, Fearless Fund becomes what they become. They're able to take that 0.00006% to 0.39% of a percent, which means it was still under 1%, right? And even then, that was too much for Black people to be getting. And look how they went to shut it down. Look at what's happening again with the conversation around the HBCUs. We just saw how these HBCUs have been underfunded nationwide by $12 billion. Even if we don't talk funding, let's fast forward 18 months ago. What was happening at the HBCUs? Bomb threats of mass shootings where the HBCUs had to keep closing, right? So this idea of thinking we just got to work hard and beat the system, there's not a system you can beat until that system is taken out, right? And so the goal more so is how to maneuver through that system and become a space where you can be self-sufficient. But again, when you have punitive policy, when you have things like opportunity zones that lie to us and told us these opportunity zones would help Black businesses, when in reality, that just helped to speed up the process of gentrification in all of these neighborhoods. There's already a video on that we're not going to revisit, but understand opportunity zones was marketed as something that was helping Black people, and it was some BS. It made wealthy white folks even wealthier and gave a boost to the hospitality industry. It didn't really help Black businesses, didn't help Black neighborhoods, because honestly, if that's the case, all of these neighborhoods that were opportunity zones should be thriving right now. Instead, they're being gentrified by the day, right? And so when he said the whole bit about this idea of, y'all need to be in the business camp instead of football camp, why can't they just be in both? Why can't it be, I love that these kids are in camp, but I would love if we had some supporters that could start some business camps, because also, what are these camps, right? A lot of these people that are these self-appointed leaders do nothing. They just talk trash. They build audiences by spending their entire livelihood critiquing Blackness and critiquing what Black folks aren't doing right. And then don't let them have a nice education. They're going to throw that in your face. Well, I got my doctorate in this, so I know what I'm talking about. The rest of y'all just stupid, right? And so they'll spend all their day chasing Lizzo on social media because she's overweight, as if that individual ain't got the same body type, right? They'll spend all day doing that. And then all of a sudden they want to be Mr. All About the People. We need to have the kids in businesses, in business schools. And so now we're at the point where Black children don't even get the luxury to be kids, right? They don't get the luxury to have joy. You got to go fix your people. So no, you ain't going to no football camp. You're going to be in the business camp. I want us to get into the space where we allow our children to do what they want to do. Let them soar. Let them have visions and dreams, right? Everything is not all about, like, to an extent, yes, things are about work, but at the end of the day, we only got one life to live, right? And your life should not be centered on constantly burning yourself out and overextending yourself, trying to individually fix a system that needs to be fixed on a macro scale. I think that's the challenge we're in. People are approaching a macro issue from a micro standpoint, and loud, strong, and wrong with it, and bold, and got books you got to pay for. This book I got is going to show you how to do it. And everybody that read the book still broke. Everybody, right? So they're going to buy another book. Now I got to read the 48 Laws of Power. All right, go on and read that too. Tell me how it worked out for you, right? And now you got a podcast and you arguing about what Black women ain't doing right or something else crazy. So I'm just over a lot of these folks. Like, it's just like, I need y'all to be for real. Please be for real. Y'all are playing in our faces, right? And so again, the idea of burdening Black youth to fix the system that old white men have created, that's not going to fly, right? I do think there are things that we have to collectively do a better job of. And there are more things that we should encourage. And there are more things that we should kind of not be so closed off to. But this whole blanket statement type thing where we're constantly just making the reason that we're having the issues we have, it's all our fault. You just can't honestly sit here in 2024 and still have that talking point. Like some of these folks are still moving like it's 1984. And at this point, some of those talking points have already been proven to be dated. They no longer correlate to the time we're living in now. So some of y'all got to get with the times, right? And again, it's all ego, no research. So I just make it make sense. Now I've said a lot. I'm going to stop for a second and read some comments. And then I got a few more topics. I think those were all the main heavy ones. So we're going to keep going from there. Where's my notes? Did I write it down? I just want to make sure I wrote this one down. I did not. So let me make sure I got that one down. Okay, let's go to the chat. I'm just tired of some of these folks that are self-appointed leaders that really it's their ego. They could care less about Black folks. It's their ego helps them make money, right? Overinflated egos. It's killing me softly. I just don't think you can be beneficial to people that you look down on. I just don't think you can be of service to people that you think are beneath you because of what you have or how you see the world. And Malcolm X even talks about that, where he says, even within our collective, sometimes you have to meet people where they are. Like understand, like one of the things that I've learned over time, like if you follow my channel, I've always been kind of straightforward, but this channel has definitely become a lot more political over the years. This channel, when it first started, was a little bit more centered on entertainment, and we kind of shifted, right? And so that was a journey. That was a process. I didn't kick the door down at 22 talking about redlining. I couldn't talk about redlining until I learned about it because I didn't know it existed until a few years ago, right? And now I can't shut up about it, right? That's how things work. But we have so many people that claim to be these leaders and want people to get behind them, but they spend all day talking down to us all day. They think we all stupid. And then their solutions are always centered in their ego, not centered in collective work, not centered in community, anything, centered in, I got an idea that I know is going to work. So you got to buy my program and I'm going to show you how it works. But you got to buy, there's a paywall on this. You got to buy this part because this is some stuff like only the top notch folks can get access to this. Like y'all be some scammers playing in everybody's face. Got these God complexes. Get over yourselves. All right. Oh, I got to go way up in this chat. All right, here we go. Poison Ivy said polio was already in the New York area where people aren't vaccinated due to their beliefs. And the thing, okay, polio. Now, I understand, especially when we were in the era of COVID. Well, we're still in the era of COVID, but especially when the COVID vaccine first came out and people were skittish, I totally understood. But I was one of them people too. I was like, I don't know if I want that first batch because who's in charge? I get it, right? And a lot of people are saying, no, it's a human population control, this, blah, 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 all these other different things. And so when I look at something like polio, understand when Henry Salk came out with the vaccine for polio and the cure, he didn't make a dime off of it. He gave it away for free because he was so concerned about polio affecting people. Because again, back then, when we're talking the 1930s, the 1920s, 1910s, polio was taking folks out, right? Polio was disfiguring people. And so there was a need to fix it. He came up with the cure and he gave it away for free. He just wanted things to be better. So now we're in a space where folks are like, oh, I'm not taking the polio vaccine. I'm like, since when? Since when? Some of y'all need to get off social media. That polio vaccine has been out forever today. And now things that were not even a problem are reemerging because everybody is a researcher now, but not a researcher, just researching for the opinions and the things that they want to make their articles and their arguments make sense. So let me find the information I want to see and then use that as a justification. So no, my kids aren't getting polio or polio vaccines. Okay. Well, let your child get polio then and tell me how that experience is. Anyway, Miss Maya said in 2024, I thought we were over policing people's hair. You know, speaking of hair, like now I'm in my soapbox because I got smoke for somebody. There was a lady who told me not too long ago that, and it's funny because she didn't really know who I was or what I did, but she was like, the reason you're not where you want to be is mainly like your hair. You don't come off as like presentable. Now this is a Black woman too. I was like, come on, man, do better. But she's one of the folks that kind of buys into respectability politics. And so she's like, you know, I think once you start like presenting yourself more professionally, things will align. And now here I am sitting with this top-notch after-school program that was nationally ranked as #1 in the country for 3 separate calendar years. I have a student that placed in the very top 2 of a national competition for America's youth to the point where their college is paid for and free, right? Like, oddly enough, at my new role, which I've only been at for a year and a half, I was employee of the freaking year. And so, like, life has been great. And then, you know, there's the YouTube and the podcast and the music and all this other stuff I got going. And I'm like, this lady doesn't know me from a can of paint, but she has made this synopsis and this observation of me based on a 5-minute conversation that she jumped into through passing because I was talking to somebody else that she knew. And she felt upon her heart to throw that out there. I'm like, then when I found out who she was and what she did, and I'm like, I'm really not even trying to be that person, but I'm doing better than you. And I mean that from a place of love. What you have, I already have and then some. And it's not even trying to be cocky, but it's like the way that we judge, right? And the way that Blackness is so over-policed. I was like, you're going to sit here and paint this narrative of you're assuming and I think maybe she saw my car because like I told you, I'm frugal. I would like to get a new car, but my car really don't be looking super nice like that. But again, it's because, hey, I'm financing other projects that will lead to other opportunities. So yes, I can wait to get a car. No, I'm not in a rush to have one. And the car works. And I don't drive often because I get the luxury of working from home 3 days out the week. So it was just very interesting to see how people move. That lady pissed me off that day. She don't even got a stove in her house talking about what I need to do. Got one of them kiddie stoves. You know those really small stoves with the little baby eyes? You can't even make a pot of gumbo on it. Like, get out of my face. Anyway. Queen said, close them. Why? This is about the universities. I mean, we know why, but what is their reason? And that's what I think we're going to continue to see. Little tidbits and loopholes within policy that allow foolish things to continue to take place, and they pass it off as just it's policy. That's the way the cookie crumbles. I'm really anxious to see what schools are going to be on a chopping block, because if it's in 3 HBCUs, that confirms everything we've already been saying, and we don't even need the confirmation because we're seeing it in real time with everything, right? Sean C. Sachet said, and we talked about this with Mississippi, the bill passed. So now there's 2 police forces in the city. That's about Jackson. We did a live on that maybe a year ago. The order of bees, exactly. HBCUs graduate the most of Black doctors and dentists in this country. That's an attack on education. It really is. And, you know, they know what they're doing, right? Understand when you're talking about anti-Blackness does not allow Black folks to thrive. So you strip away every opportunity and resource, and then you say it's their fault for not being able to measure up. So then when you see people actually measure up and start doing well and start doing things for themselves, we tear it down. Look at all these Black establishments that were burned down because of white rage and white envy, right? We keep seeing it every time. I just learned today, Dulles Airport, you know, that's the airport that services the DC area. We got BWI closer to Baltimore. We got Reagan, that's actually in Arlington, Virginia. And you have Dulles, that's way out there. I had no idea that Dulles was built over a Black establishment when it was constructed, or an old Black establishment. Like, we constantly keep seeing things where every single time we have built up and built up and built up, people come and tear it down. We talked about what happened with the Ocoee in Florida, right? And how they did all that and burned all that stuff down. And now what's in that region when you think of that area? Really, that's pretty much Orlando. You think of Disney World and Universal Studios and SeaWorld and everything else that's over there. Like, understand, I really want people to really start just reading books. Really start, like, just go whatever town you're in, go and look at the archives and see what laws are there. You will find so many things that you probably never knew about in that town you're in. You know what I mean? Like, look at just the different archives, what the ordinances were. You'll probably find out that your neighborhood was redlined. You'll probably find out a bunch of different things. There's so many examples of how they are constantly working to chip away any and every element of progress we make, right? So even when it comes to those who become the anomalies, the entertainers and the athletes, we see how, again, when they mess up or something goes down, how quickly they get yanked down and yanked out of that system as well, right? That envy. Like, so I don't know if you saw the clip with Kevin Durant where he was coming into the game and then the people called him like a B word, and then he turned around and talked to them and they go, oh, we're so sorry. Like, that idea of thinking even with athletes, you own the athletes. You can do whatever you want. You can call them whatever names you want and throw stuff at them and boo them or whatever. And it's because, again, that element of envy. They're in a place where white people think they're supposed to be, right? So since you got this luxury of being this multimillionaire, we own what it is you're allowed to do. We get to dictate how you're going to be received. And when you do things that piss us off, we're going to do everything to get you out of here. They understand with these athletes, they think they own us. That's why the whole Colin Kaepernick thing was a thing, a conversation of ownership. You don't get to take a knee and be a millionaire. Absolutely not, because you weren't supposed to have that. You should be grateful you're on this team. This is how you get Jerry Jones. You know, we come up with solutions. Fine. If y'all think it's offensive that we take a knee during the national anthem, we'll just stay in the locker room and we'll come out afterwards, so it's not a problem. What did Jerry Jones say? Nope. Y'all gonna be out there. Any boys of mine, they're gonna be out there toes to the line. And that's why y'all lost, right? Like, nothing good will come to y'all until y'all start doing right by people, right? So you keep seeing the nonsense, which is one of the reasons, side note, I hate that they started adding Lift Every Voice to the NFL games, because I feel like that was for us internally, right? And for the NFL, for me, that came off as very performative. It was, we're scared because of everything that's happening in 2020 and George Floyd this, and we're afraid they're going to start burning stuff. And NFL was already catching smoke because black folks were pissed off with how they had responded to everything with the kneeling. And then white folks were pissed off as well because it's like, why did you even give them a leg to have an argument? So NFL was starting to lose a little revenue. They said, we got to appease black folks. So fine, we'll start singing Lift Every Voice and sing at the game. And now you've opened a song up that a lot of folks didn't know about, to now they can disrespect that song and trash it and do everything. And I'm like, sometimes things that are for us. They're not for everybody. We didn't need that to be at the NFL games. Like, I personally don't like it at the NFL games because I got to sit here and watch people disrespect it all day, right? And then folks are like, this is divisive. This is not bringing Americans together when we have two national anthems. Well, the one that y'all gassing up is talking about slavery and killing us. So damn, whatever. Anyway, I didn't mean to get on my soapbox. Melody said, David Banner opened a whole can of worms I'm tired of dealing with. Anytime you mention HBCUs, people come out in droves, which I agree, to speak down on them with untruths. Yes, I agree. And it's not even just HBCUs, it's a lot of things. Sometimes it's black businesses. It's a lot of things. You will see people say, oh, that's why I don't do black business, because they had some bad experience and now all black businesses will suffer, right? And so, yeah, it's a mess out here. HBCUs have some things that they can do better, but so do majority institutions, right? Like, man. Lauren, exactly. Thank you for proving my point here. She said, that was me. I wanted to go to an HBCU, but I just didn't have the money, sadly. It was a good financial decision, but I can't help feeling like I missed out. And for a lot of people who wanted to do HBCUs, they sometimes don't have the best financial packages. And it comes from the fact that a lot of them are underfunded. And when we start talking private HBCUs, right, you know, same conversation. A lot of these majority institutions, these state schools and stuff, the money is there to ensure that there's, like, look at Harvard's endowment, right? Harvard's endowment is so high, they have enough where every student can go for free, and it doesn't even affect Howard, or not Howard, HU, but it doesn't affect Harvard. Let me pull them up. Harvard's endowment. Let's see how much it is. I know it's in the billions. $49.4 billion. $49.4 billion. $49.4 billion. I need y'all to just understand that's long money, that's old money, that's new money. That is nothing in relation to what a lot of the HBCUs get. If I pull up Howard, I'm just pulling them up because that's my school, right? Howard's endowment, $865 million, which is actually relatively high for an HBCU, but $860 million versus $49 billion. Let me pull up another school. Let's go to Fisk, right? If I pull up the endowment for Fisk, can y'all give me the number? That's not what I asked for. Hold on. $33.7 million. Fisk, $33.7 million, right? This is what I'm talking about. Let me go to Payne College. $13 million. So the point that I'm making is that these schools are so drastically underfunded. And as much as they would love to help and get a lot of us in there and give us these great packages, it's just not there, right? And now we're seeing that they've been grossly underfunded. And so when you have these schools that get underfunded, right, it affects the curriculum, it affects the facilities, it affects what that university can be. And before you know it, you got some of these universities closing. And then when you get the people who are already corrupt and being there embezzling money, I am so happy Morris Brown is back. But let's look at what happened to Morris Brown and why they had to close temporarily, right? When they lost accreditation. Or I don't even think they technically closed. They still were always open, but they had like 30 students. So it's just like, there's so many things that can be said. North Carolina A&T was in the news because the North Carolina government took funding away from North Carolina A&T because they said AT&T was getting too big and didn't want them to rival the state's flagship schools, UNC or NCST or NC State. So again, we're seeing it, right? That ceiling of where they want you to go, they're going to do everything in their power to kind of keep you in one space, right? Crazy. Let's see. Oh yeah, y'all know exactly who I was talking about with the camp. The Order of B says Boyce Watkins owes Yvette Carnell some money. Really? I don't know the full story of their relationship. I know who everybody is, but I haven't really followed her enough to know that backstory. But no, Boyce is on some stuff, man. Dania said entrepreneurship is glamorized, especially on social media. It takes a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. And I think when people go into business for themselves, like understand, at least when you're working for a company, there's an element of some security, maybe not job security because they stay laying folks off for something every 5 minutes, but that element of, okay, benefits pretty much covered. You know, maybe there's something that's coming out of your check to pay the benefits, but you're not responsible for covering the benefits for everybody else if you have people under you. Like certain things like that, right? You can take a vacation. If we go back to my tea store, let's say I don't have any customer or any employees because I can't afford them. I just can't take a 3-week vacation and run to the Bahamas. You know, I need somebody to run the store. So if I run the store now, I got to find somebody who I can pay. Right. So now I need to come up with additional revenue because if I'm trying to go to the Bahamas and now I'm paying somebody to run my store for however many days and then I still got to pay my bills, I can't give them my paycheck because I still got the mortgage and everything. Like all of that ties together. But a lot of these folks, again, ego inflated. I know everything. Follow me. I know what I'm talking about. I got time on my side, and they throw some outdated approach in your face. Understand that the world is constantly evolving, which means we also have to constantly evolve in our approach to different things. So yeah, there's that. Poison Ivy said LLC, Twitter, and TikTok got people delusional about what it takes to be a business owner, especially an ethical one. That's like that girl when folks were getting a stimulus check, and she was like, "If you're not using your stimulus check to start a business, you're in the wrong." But I'm like, "What business am I starting with $1,200? What? Be for real. Stop pocket watching, folks." Lord, a lot of folks were using that stimulus to pay bills and stuff they were behind on, not start a business. Like I said, I support people who want to start a business, but that's not going to be everybody's journey. There's going to be some people who are creatives. There are some people who are perfectly happy working at a company. There's some people have dream companies they want to work with. Some people are like, "Oh, I've always wanted to work at IBM my whole life." That's what they want to do. They're happy. Why are you forcing somebody that wants to work at IBM to go and open a t-shirt business because they don't know how to do nothing else, right? All right. Let's see here. TSU endowment, 91 million. Thank you, Billy Flood, for that. I saw that. Princess Ariel, have you talked about the Twitter CEO saying black people are the reason airlines have mechanical issues? I was going to say something, but I think it would be in such poor taste, so I'm not going to say it. But I think people should look at the track record of commercial airliners that crash and who's behind them most of the time. And I'm not even trying to start that kind of argument, but whatever. Yeah. All right. Okay. There's a few other things I want to cover first before I kind of wind down. Actually, I almost got everything. Good. I did see the piece with Wendy's. Y'all tried it. Wendy's was trying to test out this idea of like kind of surging their prices, having surge times for their food. So, like when it's lunchtime, the food would be a little bit higher than it would be if it was, 4 p.m. I was just like, in this era where Wendy's, y'all are already like the most expensive fast food spot out there. The nerve of wanting to hike up the prices, that just kind of triggered me a little bit. Like people are already going to fast food because it's a bit more affordable, but some of these fast food spots are starting to cost as much as, the spots that fall right in between fast food and restaurants, right? I'm like, y'all starting to charge so much. And my beef with Wendy's, right? Especially when I used to live in my old spot, right? There was a Wendy's they tore down in DC. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But that Wendy's, first of all, it used to take, you would sit in that drive-thru for 30, 40 minutes waiting because they were so slow. And then, man, when you get your food, like I always get a number 4. I would always get the chicken sandwich, or I might get the spicy chicken sandwich. I like a chicken sandwich, right? Um, every time I'd sit, if I was fool enough to sit there and wait that 30 or 40 minutes, and I would only do that because, like, on that side of town I lived on, everything closes early, right? And so by like 10 o'clock, there's no options except at Wendy's and McDonald's. That was it, right? And so I'm like, okay, which is the lesser of two evils tonight? And every time I would get a chicken sandwich from that Wendy's, it was microwave. Like, it wasn't even a fresh patty. So I was like, what took y'all 40 minutes? And they always give you that. Oh, I used to get so mad. Wendy's, terrible idea. Terrible idea. Like, I think they've already kind of retracted that idea and said they're going to backtrack on that and do something different. And then they claim they weren't surging the prices. It was just going to be dynamic prices that kind of shift. Stop playing in people's faces. All right. A lot of these corporations are so greedy. They've just hiked up the prices on everything. Groceries are still high. And I know folks keep saying, this is the administration's fault and blah, 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 blah. To an extent, some of that may fall in there, but also global economy shifted and there's global inflation. But a lot of these corporations are just hiking up their prices for profit anyway. Why is it that there are so many companies that are having record profits right now, but laying off everybody or hiking up the prices? Greed is a hell of a drug around here, right? What else was I going to cover? I have not seen that Kelly Rowland movie. What was it, Mea Culpa? I haven't seen it. Don't ask. I probably wasn't planning to see it. But I will say, speaking of Kelly Rowland, because I saw they were trying to give her some smoke because she got tired of talking about Beyonce in her interviews. I would too, honestly. Like, I think people have to kind of be for real. There are certain entertainers where, because they have an association with a larger entertainer, they always have to answer questions about that other entertainer. If I'm Kelly Rowland and I'm here to promote a movie, I really don't want to talk about Beyonce. We love her. She's great. But if y'all can get Beyonce, you can talk to her. Why are you asking me about somebody else all the time? I think Kelly would have to kind of do what Janet does. Like, Janet has like a thing with any interview. Well, one, she barely does interviews. But at this point, she's like, if you're going to interview me, no questions on Michael or my family. Let's talk about what I got going. And don't bring up the Super Bowl. Which, again, like, yeah, because at some point, and they always ask the same questions. It's not like y'all even have good questions, right? Why are you asking her, how does she feel about Beyonce going country? Like, I think Kelly cares, but like Kelly's like, I got my own stuff, right? That's how I kind of see that. I think that does get annoying after a while, right? You don't want to keep hearing and have to answer the same questions on every platform all the time, and so on and so forth. So that was kind of interesting. Yeah, I wasn't planning to see the Mea Culpa movie. I mean, maybe one day when I got a free minute. Tyler Perry, his productions, he has some okay. I did like Family That Prays. I thought that one was actually good. Daddy's Little Girls was okay. I Can Do Battle by Myself was okay. Why Did I Get Married was okay. I like that one better than the sequel. But a lot of his more recent movies I haven't been crazy over. Somebody told me to check out the one he has about the jazz singer or whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called. They said that one was pretty decent, but I'm just not pressed. Maybe when I have a really, really, really free minute, I'll check it out, but I'm good, right? And then I'm kind of side-eyeing him. I know he was planning to expand his studio and have this $800 million investment to build new things, but now he's learned that AI can do half the stuff, so he's changing his mind. I'm like, well, there's those jobs that were going to be created. Man. All right, let me read some comments, and we're going to actually start winding because I think I've covered everything. I'm making really good time tonight. Summer Walker. I didn't get to see all of Urban One Honors, but I did see the Mary J. Blige tribute, and they had Summer Walker doing the Mary songs. I like some of Summer Walker's music. I would have had somebody else perform. Summer's already said that she has anxiety and she's not really comfortable in front of audiences. So for me, it's like, why would you put her to do a tribute? I think when you're doing somebody's tribute, you're supposed to go all out. This is a celebration of what it is that they have contributed to music. And this is supposed to say, let me just show you how good you look. I'm going to sing this song that you did, and I'm going to tear this song up, and I'm going to just show you how much of an impact this song has had on everybody. Because while I'm singing this song, everybody in the crowd is going to be jamming up and singing and dancing, and it's going to be a great time to reminisce on what this song or this set of songs meant to all these people and what you mean to us. So to send her out there, knowing she's going to go out there with the energy of somebody in the library, I'm like, Lord, she did Real Love. I was like, if this ain't the most dry version, and it, even pitched wise, it wasn't that good. And normally she's okay with pitch. I was just like, who picked this one? Of all, like, I'm sure Jasmine Sullivan is still, her mother passed, so maybe she wasn't available. But I'm like, y'all couldn't call Jasmine Victoria Monet, you know, Money Long is having a great time. I'm sure she would have been happy to sing a Mary song. You know, I think Keisha Cole's on tour, so maybe she wouldn't have been available. I'm just thinking of all these people who would have had at least some energy on the stage, right? Mary, I think one of the reasons people love Mary is fun. If you've ever been to a Mary concert, Mary, like Mary, she's doing her thing, getting it, right? And then once she's done dancing, she's gonna do her songs and scream and wail, and it's gonna be the 20-piece band, and it's a good time. So to go from like energy on a 10 to non-existent, I'm unsure if I want to be here. I was like, who made that choice? Mary was nice. You know, she was giving the courtesy smiles, but I don't like when they have to do people's tributes. Either go all out or go home. That's my argument. That's not specifically to Summer Walker, but whoever locked in that last piece. I thought the ceremony from the bits that I did get to see were nice. And again, her performance was not terrible. It just was not the kind of performance I think you give for somebody's tribute, right? If I was ever invited to do somebody's tribute, let's say they invite me to do Bobby Brown, right? They say, we're going to let you do Bobby Brown. The way that performance would be so lit, because look, I'm going to open with Getaway, because I'm going to kick it off with Getaway, and then we're going to go into My Prerogative, and then every little step I take, we're going to bring in like a New Edition medley and everything. We're going to have the choreography, we're going to have the live band. It's going to be a time. It's going to be a straight party for like 15 minutes, right? We going in. Like, that's the energy you're supposed to have. Or if they were ever like, you know, I don't know, we know you like Janet, so we're going to let you do a tribute to her, a dance one. You know, we coming right into Rhythm Nation and and All Right, and I'm going to have the zoot suit on, and we're going to roll the dice. Like, you're supposed to go hard. Like, I don't like when people be doing a tribute. Like, quit playing in people's faces, right? Now, fortunately, Mary's had enough tributes, so she'll be okay. She's gotten a lot of them. But still, and hopefully good luck to those who have been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know she's one of the nominees, so good luck to her with that. But yeah, that was some nonsense. I was like, y'all could have got somebody a little better than that. Like, Jesus, get somebody that's confident. Somebody asked me about Jennifer Lopez. I did listen to her album. The critique I've always had of Jennifer Lopez, I've just never felt that she's had a distinctive musical identity. I think her gift outside of acting, I do think she is an entertaining performer. Even though she may not have the strongest voice, she knows that there's a certain standard on the stage. So even if she's not sounding like what you want her to sound like, the dancing is going to be there, the showmanship is going to be there, the musicality is going to be there. She's going to do all these different things to keep it engaging. I think that's her gift. But as far as albums, there's never been a Jennifer Lopez album that I thought was just this blockbuster album that really just was cohesive. I think she's always been very hit or miss with albums. For this album, I listened. I think it's okay. I think it would have worked better if it were like 2005 or 2006. Sonically, it sounds like it would have worked back then. It just doesn't work right now for me because I think one of the critiques I had for her as an artist was that she never really set any trends artistically. She kind of followed a trend that was already out. And this is an album full of songs that kind of follow the trend that's already out. So it becomes a little uneventful. But I will say kudos to her because she did it independently and so on and so forth. But the album I wasn't crazy over. It's an album that wasn't bad, but it's probably one I'll never revisit again. And yeah, so that was that with that album. Who else had dropped something? Usher's album. I'm half and half with. I like some of the songs in there. I really like the Kissing Stranger song. That was the one I really liked. I think maybe his album was just a little too long. I feel like if you're gonna have long albums, you need almost every song to hit. Like every song got to take you somewhere. I think he has a few songs that he could have probably scrapped. But I don't think Usher cares. Usher's on this sold out tour, so he's gonna be good. J-Lo's going on tour too. Who else did I listen to recently? I think those are the two albums I've actually listened to. I don't know if I listened to anybody else yet. I think I told you I did listen to the Nikki album when it came out. It was okay. Who else? Am I skipping somebody? I think that's everybody for now that of all the new releases. There's probably some people I'm forgetting. They'll come to me later. All right. Anyway, back to my chat. Somebody said, just curious, was she an older Black woman? That's the woman that was saying I should probably cut my hair to be more successful. Yeah, she was probably about like 55, 60, which is why I understood some of that's a generational conversation. But yeah. All right. Somebody said the ads have been terrible. You know, I normally when the ads come, there's like a bar that's like, well, you can't see it, but like right here on my screen, there's a bar that says ads, and I'll normally hit skip. I think because I've been on my soapbox. My laptop is here, my camera's here. So I'm always looking here talking to you guys. So I don't even get to really see everything unless I'm already looking. so I keep missing it. So yeah. Let's see. Exactly. Everybody's agreeing. We should have kept lift every voice for ourselves. It doesn't need to be performed at these events, right? Somebody said Black History Month is coming to an end. We got one more day, y'all. Can we at least let the 29th not be chaotic? Can tomorrow be a good day? Can it just be a good day? I just hiccuped. And speaking of hiccups, that was the thing I was gonna say about the Who the F Did I Marry girl. She had the hiccups in every video. You're gonna have to get that checked out. Goodness. Now I will say if I laugh a certain way, it will trigger hiccups for me. But it was like she would just be talking to me with every video. I'm like, okay, all right. What up, Kendrick? Celestin, what up? Yes, corporations have gotten very, very greedy. Green Girl said a combo meal costs as much or more than an entree in a small restaurant. Yeah, do y'all remember? It depends on how old y'all are. Like, I think back to, I remember you could get a value meal at McDonald's for like $2.50. Man, I remember when the Big Mac meal was $3.39. Man, that was a time. And if you got it supersized, remember I don't think they supersize anymore. And if you got the supersize, I think it might have been $5. And back then, $5 for fast food in like the 90s, like 99, 2000, 2001. Oh, that was like big money, right? I think the Whopper meal was like $4 and some change back then. So it's like now you order like a meal for you and somebody else, and it's like $30. Like, geez, Louise. Nerd Lars said Dave Thomas Circle. Yes, that's the Wendy's I'm talking about. And it took me forever to figure out how to get to it because I used to always try to get to it and I would end up, I can't explain it, but for those who don't live in DC, there was this Wendy's and it was like it's set on this island and there's all these streets that surround it. And like one is like New York Ave, one is Florida Avenue, one is God, what am I skipping? One is First Street, Northeast. It's like 4 different roads and you would be driving in circles trying to figure out how to get into the Wendy's. And every time you think you get to it, like, oh, now I'm going to New York. Yeah, crap. Now I'm on the way to Maryland. Like, or you trying to go this way? Oh, crap. Now I'm going in the Northwest. Like, it took me forever to figure out how to get into that Wendy's. And so then you finally get into the Wendy's and they would be so slow. You would just be sitting there. And then, listen, it is the city. So a lot of times when you're in the city, then you're going to have the person who needs some extra change. It's going to come knock on your window and you can't sit there and ignore them for 40 minutes, right? So, what's up? Hey, man, you got $20? 20? Y'all don't ask for $1 no more? Look, I can get you some food, but I ain't got 20. Like, you want some fries or something? No, man, I just need like $20. I don't carry cash. Like, I can get you food. You got Cash App? Damn, y'all getting okay. At least they evolving with the times. Okay. I'll Cash App you $5. I ain't got 20 to give. Rent's due. Right? I'm already paying $11 for this burger that's about to be in the microwave. It's not even gonna be good. Man. All right. Brooke Smith said, bro, there's literally no food in DC past 11 p.m. besides that one Denny's or IHOP. Literally, if you live in DC, the city shuts down. Your options after 11 o'clock, Denny's, IHOP. If you're in China or Gallery Place, I think Clyde's is open till, I think they close at 11. No, Clyde's is open late because folks used to go to Clyde's after the club closed. So Clyde's be open a little bit late. And the diner in Adams Morgan. Those are like the 4 spots that are open like all night. Other than, H and Chicken. Now I like going to them. They have a bomb waffle. They're open late. But other than that, ain't too many options. Everything here be shut down early. What do I think about the new MJ movie? Have I seen the first look photo? I'm excited to see it. I hope they do right by him. But from what I understand, since it's the family involved, it should be pretty well. I like that the family is a lot more involved. The nephew that's playing him, from those pictures I've seen, looks really good. It looks like we're already 10 steps above the Flex Washington movie. So if y'all remember that one. All right. Thank you, Queen. Exactly. Mayday air disasters. The series shows the majority of deliberate and circumstantial crashes are not on the account of Black pilots. Thank you, Queen, for bam. Like, I don't have time for these folks to keep thinking they're superior to us on everything and we just don't know how to do anything. There's so much stuff that we're involved with they don't even be paying attention to. And so please get out of here. And this is also not going to be a speech of what it is we've done. We don't have to even sit here and elevate ourselves to, like, I want us to get out of the habit of thinking we have to appease them. They don't like us, so be it. I just feel like we just move politically and make sure that we can exist in a space where we don't have to be collateral to their nonsense. That's where I'm at with it. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm good on it. I don't need your approval for anything. If you rock with me, I love it. We can rock together. Cool. Probably not invited to the cookout because that's still for me and mine. But you know what? I'll say, I might share a song or two that was played at the party for you to get hyped with and everything. And you know what? We can be cordial. But yeah, I'm not doing this. I don't live for the appeasement of other groups of people who don't see my value. Like, if you don't rock with me because of whatever you've been brought up in, that's on you. And I'm not overextending myself to try to appease you either. Like, absolutely not. Especially when I don't know how you move once you get in the voting booth. Oh, y'all are frying up this movie. They said the movie was terrible. People were dragging it on Twitter. Maya Spike said, I saw Mia Cooper. Y'all didn't miss anything. No shade to Kelly. She was okay. But that movie's writing was trash. I think a lot of times you can have some movies where the acting is just phenomenal, but then the script is just not good. I saw the One Love movie, the Bob Marley one, and I thought it was okay. I love the acting, but I would have definitely had a different approach with how the script was written. Because I don't know if it needed to. I think Bob Marley's One Love, I think it should have been a TV series. I think there was so much they were trying to capture. There's just no way to do it in that hour and 45 minutes. And then some of the movie was from the approach of just politically what was happening in Jamaica. Some of it was from the approach of the experience of Bob Marley and the Wailers. Some of it was about the marriage and family. There was like so many angles that it could have gone, but it's trying to put it all in one. I think it should have been a series, kind of like what they did with the Aretha Franklin series on Nat Geo. That was the one where they had Cynthia playing Aretha, which I did not agree with that casting at all. I thought this series actually was better than the Jennifer Hudson movie as far as the detail in the storyline, right? I think that's why the New Edition or series was so good, because they had 3 episodes to really bring it home. That's why Jackson 5 American Dream was so good, because they had 2 episodes to piece it all in. I just don't think biopics have been working as of late, because now we're doing the biopics of people who have these extensive careers, and there's just so much that you can't capture because you're limited with how much time you're given, right? Man. Piscean Beauty said, I know people have issues with some of the messaging of Diary of a Mad Black Woman, but that was his best movie production wise, because Tyler didn't direct it. Yeah, that movie was okay. I will say, because I think I like the play a bit more than the movie, but I like how the movie ends more than the play. Because the play version I saw, after he done did all that jacked up stuff to the lady, and he done kicked her out the house and had another child on the side and left her with no money, but then he ended up paralyzed. And in the play, she went back with him. I was like, what? Wait a minute. I was in like middle school watching this. Wait, why is she going back to him? And they tried to paint the whole, in the Bible. I'm like, F that. Well, not the Bible, but what the approach with, I'm like, so she's supposed to just stay miserable just because he all of a sudden can walk again. He had to get paralyzed to learn that he wasn't Ish. And because he's seen the light in 5 minutes and y'all sing a song, she's going to go back to that. When the guy that was going to give her everything she wanted was right there, and she's going to let him go. No, you put up with nonsense for 20 years. It was time to go. It was the opportunity. You're going to go back to the nonsense. So the movie, they swapped it around, and, she went to the new guy. I was like, all right. Yeah. I even like Medea's Family Reunion. That's like, that was okay. Yes, Don't Be Cruel. I like that song. Less likely. They said was Ashanti vocals on the J-Lo album. It sounds like J-Lo did all of this herself this time. Like, I think I do believe there are certain entertainers that spend a lot of time on social media and see what everyone says about them. So I think from what I heard, I didn't really hear a lot of additional vocalists on this album. I just heard her, right? And she's been training with Steve Mackey vocally and all that stuff. So she's probably confident to go for all that. But yeah, it's just an album where I was like, even whatever the song is she has out now with Lotto, it just sounds very 2005 to me. And y'all know I love nostalgia. Like, I love stuff that reminds me of that earlier era, but I need it to still be fresh. It sounds like y'all jumped on that trend a little too late, right? Hey, Kyle Michaels, you heard her song First Love. That song was fire, and I didn't understand why it never caught on. First Love. Who's First Love by? Are you or are you talking about Victoria Monet's New Love? Are you talking about that, or does J Lo have? Let me look at J Lo, see what she got. If she got a song called First Love, I don't remember. It was a Faith Evans day today. I just want to see. Okay, so it's not J Lo. I don't know who First Love is by. First Love. Cause now I'm so old. You know, the first song that popped up on mine was Avant and Kiki Wyatt. Oh, it is a Jennifer Lopez song. Oh, it's on. What album is this? Oh, let me not play it. I ain't about to get flagged. Oh, it's off of. What album is this? AKA. What album is that? The one with On the Floor? I don't know what is what. Oh, 2014. What was on that? This is the album that had the I Love You Poppy song and the Booty song with Pitbull, and I want to say Iggy Azalea. Okay, yeah, I don't remember. I'll have to go back and revisit that song. I don't remember that one. Now I did like Waiting for It Tonight, Billy Flood. Now that was my song, but oddly enough, that was already somebody else's song first. Because I remember, like, I knew I wasn't crazy. There's another artist that has the song. And I knew it because when I lived in Italy, that was the version I was hearing. This is before J-Lo dropped hers. Waiting for It Tonight. Who sings this original song? That was the one thing about living in Europe. Whatever they were doing in Europe, sometimes it would be dropped off or it would blow up over there, and then American artists would sometimes have the same song. Waiting for It Tonight, a song by Maria Christensen, Michael Garvin, and Phil Temple. That's the one I knew, I want to say. Oh no, it was a girl group called Third Party, and he came out with the song in '97. And so and I was in Italy in '97. So by the time I got to America, summer of '99, you know, she had If You Had My Love out at the time. I'm like, cool. And then I remember Waiting for It Tonight came out, and I'm like, I know this from somewhere. But this is the era before YouTube. And mind you, when I lived in Italy, we didn't watch TV. There was no TV because everything was in Italian. So you'd hear the songs on the radio. So it wasn't like there was a video I could reference. There's no YouTube that you could just go back in and type in. You know, this is back when album eras were eras, especially before the internet became what it became. So once an album era closed, it closed. And that's why things like old school music or whatever hit a little different, because when you finally did hear those songs again, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. Hey, because, you know, everything was not at the hands of streaming where you could just pull up all the stuff you wanted. All right. So I remember Waiting for It Tonight, and I was like, I know the song from somewhere. And I just thought I was crazy until maybe a few years ago when I saw something. And I was like, I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew that was like somebody else's song first, right? Kind of like Monica and Angel of Mine, and how, you know, there was a British group that had the song first and released it maybe a year and a half before Monica. Anyway, let's see. But I did like Waiting for Tonight. I like the J-Lo version. That I think that's on my gym. That might be on one of my gym playlists. You know, I got a gym playlist with like 500 songs and stuff on there. Somebody said Cash App and it's a scam. Born Earth said, you described the location of that Wendy's perfectly. Exactly. If you live in DC, y'all know what I'm talking about. That Wendy's is gone now because they're redoing all those roles. But boy, that Wendy's there. Somebody said Black History Month starts January 1st and ends December 31st. Yes, we celebrate Black History year round around here. But when we get that dedicated month, I really know how to do it. I was trolling somebody at work the other day because they asked me to do something. I was like, no, because it's Black History Month. You're going to have to wait till March to get that done. And they didn't realize I was joking. They didn't know what to say because they didn't know if they would offend me if they said stuff. I was like, I'm just playing. I get it done. Like, man, I get it done. Somebody said, I think Clyde's is open till midnight. Okay. Clyde's pissed me off too, man. They were making this bomb Bronzino, like the sea bass. That was the best thing on their menu. And they had just introduced it like a year ago. That was my treat sometimes after the gym on like a Friday. Like, ooh, you know, if my treat to myself, if I did the gym at least 4 days a week, on that Friday, I would let myself go to Clyde so I could get the Bronzino. And they took it off the menu. And then they're going to tell me, oh, well, we have lobster now. Okay, but that ain't Bronzino. Like, lobster's overrated. I'm sorry. You just dip it in the butter. Yum, great. Like, if you can't season it until you pop it out the shell, but you can't really cook it outside the shell because then it's going to come out too dry or too chewy if they cook it wrong. Like, playing around. And now they got rid of the lobster tail. So I was like, let me know when y'all quit tripping. I'll come back when y'all got some real food on the menu. Billy Flood, yes, they had Cynthia playing Aretha. Mm-mm. Okay, they said First Love is about Ben Affleck. I'm about sick of them too. Lord, okay. They got on my nerves in 03. Lord, we heard about them every fight. Like in the way we're hearing about Taylor Swift and Kelsey or whatever now, that was Ben. Remember, they just called it Benifer. Like if you were like an avid TV watcher and you watched like there was that random block at 7 o'clock where it was like Inside Edition, Extra, Entertainment Tonight, and Access Hollywood all came on and they all had the same story every day. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck every 5 minutes. I was about sick of them. Lord, like let me turn on Wheel of Fortune or something else. All right, I think those are all my topics. I just want to double check one last time before we start winding down because we are at the 3-hour mark. Yes, that is everything. I did good. All right, cool. All right. Somebody said, when is my next R&B is Dead video? So I've kind of retired R&B is Dead and I've shifted it to the Music Talk series instead. Or if I do bring it back, which I probably am not, because the title is just people do too much now, right? They don't like the title, but I keep trying to remind folks, well, the title is what brings people to the video because that's what they recognize. They see my face, they see that title, they know what I'm talking about. Because at this point, we know R&B is not technically dead. Actually, it's been having a really great resurgence in some pockets. Like you have SZA, who has had an album that's just, or a song, what Snooze has been in the top 10 for a year or something like that. So you're getting some of these R&B acts that are starting to have better commercial success, right? So yes, we know R&B is not technically dead commercially, but at the time that I started the series, R&B was struggling in the world of EDM. And yeah, so even in modern times, I've kept the same title, but I always give that disclaimer, like, no, there's still great music out there. Search through the trenches of the internet to find it. And people still fight me tooth and nail about it. And so I just started shifting more towards the Music Talks videos because I like those a bit more because I can really give context and history. The next Music Talks, like I said, is the New Jack Swing bit, but that's after Mariah, whenever Mariah comes out. But we're getting there. I know y'all have been asking because y'all be like, if you don't give us that Mariah doc, we are going to come to your house and put salt water in all of your plants. Right? Like, man. All right. Oh, yeah. Angel of Mine was another X song. Let me see who has the original version of Angel of Mine. Original. It's from a group called, and they're a UK act. Come on, man. Search it up. Eternal. That was the group. It was a group. It's like a black British group called Eternal that had the song. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of folks who have songs that other people do because, like, you know, a lot of people love Aaliyah's "Can I Come Over," and you kind of forget that Changing Faces had the song first, and it was actually on an album that was released. So yeah, I like both versions of that one too. Okay. Oh, y'all frying up Tyler Perry. Oh Lord. All right. Oh, that's a great question, Omega Calvin. How did you make the transition from your old role to your new role? I almost didn't because I turned a new job down like twice because I felt so bad that I was leaving the kids. And then maybe I'll go into more detail in the podcast when it gets to that. But the saving grace, because yeah, the opportunity came. It wasn't when I was looking for it. They came to me. And yeah, I was like, nah, I think I'm good because I was happy. Like I had a great team, loved the kids. It was a great environment. Everything felt like family at that point. You know, I had all the grandparents and parents always bringing me food and stuff every day. And my boss, because if you follow the podcast, you know right now I'm in the trenches with Boss Lady. Boss Lady been driving me crazy. Eventually, Boss Lady transitions out, and I end up with a new boss that is just God sent. And that boss left us alone, like just left me to do what I needed to do. So it was a great time, right? But I still wasn't really being paid adequately enough for the kind of results I was bringing. and the kind of work we were doing, the pay just was not matching, and it was starting to affect like livelihood because, hey, the cost of living is going up, and the salary's not going anywhere. So that was one of the deciding factors. But what really got it, there was an older woman that used to work in the company who she had done like 40 years with DPR in DC, like Department of Recs, like doing after school stuff. And then she did like another 15 years in our company. And right before I was about to give my final no, I talked to her just for like advice. And she was like, I'm trying not to spoil some of the stuff in this podcast, but long story short, there's somewhat of a tragedy that takes place, and you'll find out in the podcast in like a few more episodes that takes place, and it kind of opens a lot of people's eyes. And she pretty much says, like, thinking back to that tragedy, it wasn't like an incident or anything where somebody did something wrong. It was just life was happening. Things were going on. We were in a pandemic, that kind of stuff. And she was like, I want you to think about how the company moved after that. And how do you think they would do if that were you? Right. And she's like, you have all these different talents and stuff. You definitely are going to have to get to a space where you can have the time to do it. Because the thing about running a community center is you don't have a lot of personal time, especially if you have a smaller center with a smaller staff. And at this point, if you follow my podcast, like, I always talk about the girl Ava. At this point, Ava has 2 kids and is married. And so she's not going to be able to keep sacrificing weekends and stuff because she has a whole family at home, right? And stuff like that. And so I just started thinking of everything that I was trying to do at the time. Because, it's like it was starting to go into script writing, doing like different music related stuff. I'm getting all these opportunities. I'm always in New York. Like every other month I'm in New York for something all the time, or I need to go to LA for this. And it was getting hard to do it all at the same time. Plus my cohort of kids, I started in 2011 because we were in the public housing complex and the waiting list to move in that neighborhood was closed. I got to grow up with the same kids for that entire 11 years. There will be new kids that will come, here and there, but it was that same cohort. And the majority of my original cohort were now becoming adults and out the door. So it made it easier. And so, yeah, it was a sad day when I told the kids I was leaving. And oddly enough, it doesn't feel like I left because I'm always there. And I think the staff gets annoyed because I get to come and do I'm like the fun uncle now because I don't have to be there for the hard stuff and all the fussing. So when I'm coming, I'm showing up with donuts and stuff, and I'm taking kids to Cold Stone, and so I'm the one that comes with all the fun stuff. So I'm sure that annoys everybody. So I'm still involved. There's been invitations to join the board of directors to kind of, which I am considering. I need to map out a few other things first. I have a very, very in-demand schedule right now, which is kicking my behind. And so when things slow down a little bit and I have a bit more leverage to do more in that capacity, then sure, but not right now. But so yeah, I like the spot I'm in where I can just kind of show up, visit. And then I have a whole group chat with all of my older kids that are like in college and stuff. I always pop in and check on them. How's college going, guys? Are we still holding on? And they be going through it. Mr. Michael, I don't know. I'm like, yes, you can do it. So yeah, what a time. Anyway. SF said Usher's new album was not good. I wish he would have come harder since he's going on tour. It just doesn't seem to flow the way I want it to flow. There's a lot of songs I would have taken off. It has a few songs I like, but yeah, I wasn't that moved by it. I thought the promotional pictures were good. The whatever they did with the color with that peach looks really cool. It almost looks like one of those plastic prop peaches with the gold studs that reflect off the light. I'm like, that looks cool. So that was good, but man. All right. Somebody said, can we have a bonus mini episode hosted by Ava? I don't think she would want to be. We're polar opposites. She's not trying to have her face on stuff like that, which is why I changed everybody's name in the podcast, just kind of protect folks' identities and stuff. Everybody, is not comfortable being out there. I am, because I haven't been on YouTube forever. This is nothing for me. So this is, what's up? But I get it. And I think too, things start to shift when you start having like a family and stuff. You become very protective of your kids and stuff, and then the work that her husband does too. So I totally get it. But no, yeah. Do I still have the Monica poster? I still have all. Okay, so for those who used to follow me way back 2 apartments ago, my old setup, I used to have these posters on the wall. Like I had like a Rush Hour 3 poster. The whole apartment had posters everywhere in frames. But the corner that I sat in, there was like a Rush Hour 3 poster. There was a Jasmine Sullivan poster, Monica. I'm trying to think what y'all could see from the. I think you could see Nas. Actually, let me just look up one of my old videos and see what was on that wall. But long story short, I had a bunch of old posters, and let me see. I want to see here. All right, I'm gonna look right up here. I'm gonna look at one of these old BET Honors reviews I used to do. Who's on this wall? Okay, this is. All right. Okay. There's Michael Jackson. There's Aaliyah. There's. Actually, hell, y'all can look. Look at that. There's Aaliyah. There's Michael Jackson. Jasmine. That's Brandy at the top. Monica to the right of my head. Rush Hour. That was a hand-drawn TLC picture above the Rush Hour one. And then that was A. Marie's Because I Love It poster above Monica. I don't know who this is above the TLC one. I don't know what poster that is. But yeah, I used to have a bunch of posters. I still have them. They're still in frames. They're all in like a closet somewhere, just sitting there. I plan to put those up when I finally get a house and build my man cave. They're not going to be anywhere on the walls in here. But yeah, that was the time. That was the old channel, right? Good times. I wasn't even monetized back then. I was just making videos because I loved it. I miss those posters. That was a good time. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, Ava is happily married. She got married. I'm putting it in the podcast. Let me tell you how trifling that was. Maybe they up on here listening. Man, so I was turning 25. I don't really do birthday parties and stuff very often, but I was turning 25. There was this place called Bourbon. Was it Bourbon? I think it was called Bourbon. It used to be in Adams Morgan. I don't know if it's still there. Either Bourbon or I think it's called Bourbon. And so I had invited everybody to come to Bourbon because my birthday is August 1st and everything. And so Ava and at the time her boyfriend were like, yeah, we're coming. Okay, cool. And so, everybody's showing up and I'm having the time of my life, having the time of my life, right? And they had texted me like, we're on the way. We're trying to find parking. Oh, okay, cool. And so 2 hours go by. I ain't seen them. She sends me a text. I just got engaged. I said, oh, congrats. Yeah. And so then when she was telling me the backstory about it, she thought they were going to my party. Instead, he wanted to propose that day. And so they were going for a walk like by the monuments. And she was annoyed because it was kind of raining a little bit that day. And so, I'm not going to tell all their business. But long story short, they proposed. So I was like, well, I'll say the special thing is you got engaged on my birthday. So my birthday will always be a special day. But no, yeah, they got engaged and then they got married 2016. And that was fun because I was the MC for her reception. So that was a lot of fun. That was a good time. Save it for the podcast. I don't want to tell all the business. Yeah, good things happen to people sometimes when they're really great people. And they deserve everything they have. And now I'm the godfather of all their children. So and they have another one on the way. So it's like I have 2 godchildren with Ava, and I have a godson, and now there's another one that's coming from Ava. She's having a 3rd one, so that's cool. And I'm cutting it off after that. And if my friend Whitney has one, that's gonna be the 5th and the last godchild because I'm gonna be broke taking care of everybody. All right. Somebody said I missed the old setup. I missed the old rent that I paid. Back then rent was $1,100. Must be nice. God, if I could go back to that. Man. Yeah, I ain't gonna say what the rent is now, but it's ridiculous. All right, I'm gonna get off in exactly 4 minutes. So we got 4 minutes to chop it up, and I'm gonna call it a night because this has been great, but I'm a little sleepy. I'm fighting for my life right now with y'all. So I'm gonna do that. It's been a long day. All right, so we'll get a few more. Okay, so it was called Bourbon. Yeah, Bourbon was my favorite spot in Adams Morgan to go to. I do like that new spot they got out there, Air. That's pretty cool. One of my friends invited me to one of his events he had. That was pretty cool. That was pretty dope. I don't really get the chance to like go party anymore because I don't really party like that now. But yeah. Bourbon was my favorite spot in Adams Morgan. Marvin's was my favorite spot on U Street before they got rid of it. Yeah, nightlife is really interesting. Anyway, there was an article I saw where they're talking about how nightlife, like the clubs are closing by the week and nightlife in America's changed. And I'm like, yeah, because all y'all want to do is sit in sections and smoke hookah and make Instagram videos all day. People don't dance anymore. You know, the clubs are removing the dance floors and putting more sections because everybody wants to be VIP, and you get the sparklers and get the $500 bottle or whatever. And the girls come in with the bottle, and then you get them some crazy bill, and next thing you know, everybody fighting, and then that's the night. It's not fun anymore. So I'm glad I was of the age that I was where the club was still a thing. All right. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, 5 years. My rent was $7.95 a month the last 2 years. It's increased to $12.80 now. It's $13.51. Oh, I wish. Oh, I wish. But no, I get it. That's crazy. That's almost double in just 2 years. That's ridiculous, man. Yeah, somebody said I've been watching videos for so long. I get nostalgic talking about the old ones now. I can't say that about many YouTubers. Yeah, you know, there's certain folks I do remember that have been around since like day one. Like there's a guy, Keith, that's been around for even before I started making YouTube videos, when I was still posting like dance videos. Like they've been around since then. Who else has been on there? I mean, there's a lot of folks. Alan's been here for a pretty long time. Angel Haven, when she's on, has been on for a really, really long time. A lot of these folks are actually like Facebook friends and stuff now, so I know them by their Facebook name, so I don't want to put their name out there. But the one guy that their family's from Tanzania, you know who you are. I know your real name, but I don't want to say your real name on the thing and put you out there like that. So that person has been there since like day one. Yeah, there's a lot of folks who've been there for a good minute, so it's cool. Let's see. Somebody said they think greed is the issue. Yeah, there's a lot of greed going on with a lot of this stuff. As far as like rents and stuff, ridiculous. Let's see. Rent here is almost $3,000 for a 4-bedroom house, when in 2020 rent was $2,300. Rent in DC right now, depending on where you live, for a 1-bedroom is $3,000. Like, geez Louise, had enough. Like, man. Atlanta rent is crazy. All these places are going up, and I know everybody's moving to Texas. I know people in Houston are sick of everybody moving there. But yeah, yeah, everything's expensive. Calvin, what R&B albums do you think are the new classics, like today's Marvin Gaye and Aretha Franklin? New classics. I think Solange's album, the one that has Mad and Forest Bias and Cranes in the Sky, goes in that category. And I'm not saying in comparison to like Marvin and Aretha, but I'm just talking about albums that I think just stuck with people and that still have some legs. So I would definitely say that album. I would say a lot of the ones I really, really like weren't commercially huge. Lettucey has an album that I just absolutely love. That the album that had like I Blame You on it, but that's almost 10 years ago. I would say, let me just scroll through and see who I got in here that I'd be by. Oh, I don't think we'll appreciate it yet. I would have said Jasmine Sullivan's reality show, even though Love Me Back is my favorite Jasmine album, but I think reality show kind of falls in that category. I would say if more people would have listened to it, I would have said Kevin Ross, Drive 2. I would say, maybe Summer Walker, one of them Summer Walker albums. She ain't really my go-to, but a lot of people really love those two albums. Let's see, I'm looking at all the albums I've bought in the last few years and the different artists. I wish more people would have heard Amber Mark's 3 Dimensions Deep album. I thought that was an excellent album, but people miss it. I would throw Ari Lennox in there with her most recent project. I would throw in Chloe and Holly's Ungodly Hour, I thought was an excellent album. D'Angelo's Black Messiah, even though that's like 2015. I don't know which window you gave me, so I'm kind of just sticking within like the last 10 years kind of window. I'm skipping so many people. Y'all gonna be cussing me out in the comment section. I can see it now when I read this back later. Who's God, what's his name? Thundercat. I think the Thundercat album that has the Do-Rag song, Dragon Ball Do-Rag, that song, that definitely, I love that album. I don't know if we really have a lot of classics like that. I think Jane Hancock had a great EP, a Summer Type Flow, that I thought was really, really good. That kind of got ignored, but that was a great project. I would say I would throw K Michelle's, what is it, Anybody Want to Buy a Heart album? The one that has I Miss You Goodbye and Love 'Em All and Maybe I Should Call, that was an excellent album. I would say Kelly Rowland's Talk a Good Game was a great project. The problem is there's all these great albums, they just didn't do massively well, but they were gems. So it's kind of like if you're a music head, you appreciate them. If you kind of just follow what is commercially massive, then there's a lot that get lost in the shuffle. I think some people would say Lucky Days, Painted album maybe. I would still throw Mary J. Blige Good Morning Gorgeous album in there as well. That was a great album. Let's see. Who else? I'm skipping so many people, man. I really enjoy Raphael Sadiq's Jimmy Lee album from 2019. That was a really nice album. Let's see. Who am I skipping? I would have said Tidra Moses, Cognac and Conversation from 2015. Y'all don't find me if I don't throw Beyonce one in there. Of the Beyonce albums, from the last 10 years, what's the last 10 years of her solo albums? What's Renaissance, Lemonade, and Self-Titled? Well, I think Renaissance, because of just how different it is, goes in that conversation. And I actually choose Self-Titled over Lemonade. So I'd say that. I would say the Babyface and Tony Braxton joint album, The Love Marriage Divorce. Topaz Jones, well, he's more of a rapper, but that Don't Go Telling Your Mama album was really good. I like Tweet's last album, the Charlene, was really, really good. Tyler, the Creator, is a rapper, so I'm going to pass him. Victoria Monet's Jaguar was really good. King, remember the group King, like We Are King? I really like the We Are King album. They split up though, so that pissed me off. I'm gonna stop there. I'm skipping a lot of people, but I mean, it's hard to say what are classics because nobody's really selling or moving in units. People have like singles that really like hit, but like albums are just, this is a weird time. We're almost in this era of like playlisting. You know what I mean? All right, let me read these last few and then we're gonna call it a day. October London. I like his project. I had to still go back and listen to it. I think what I like more so is just the sound that it reminds me of because it's very Marvin Gaye-ish, right? Aurora said, Calvin, you're the reason I fell back in love with Janet. See, I told you about that. That's my ministry. No, I was kidding. Yeah, but love me some Janet. Now, for me personally, I would throw Unbreakable in there. I love that album. I thought that was her best album since Tamia Joe. So yeah, I love that one too. Robert Glasper, he makes really great music. Oh, because you're saying D'Angelo Voodoo. See, I put that in a different category because that's like late 90s, early 2000s. So I kind of just took the last 10 years because if we start going back to like the 2000s, then I got to redo this whole list, right? Because we got some real names to throw in here then, if that's the case. So let's see. SEK said, random question, when is your movie coming out? I don't live in the USA, but I plan to watch it. Okay, so I have been advised I can't talk about it. But we're at the last tail end of post-production. And so we're having a whole rollout campaign in regard to that wonderful season that you go through when you have a project that's complete and it goes to all, I'm trying to talk in parables here. Long story short, it's going to go through a certain cycle, right? There's a certain cycle it's going to go through. And once the cycle completes, then we'll finish the distribution. But the good thing is with that cycle, depending on what those outlets are, those will be open to anybody who would want to view if they want to go to those different events that take place. So we have a 2024 rollout. Once we finish that cycle, then we'll figure out the whole distribution thing. And, you know, it's cool. It's a short film. It's a lot of work, but it's been fun. I love it. You know, for those who get to see it, you will see the work that went into it. Like, it's definitely worth the wait and the time and the effort. And like I said, amazing cast, amazing crew. It is a lot of work, but I'm very excited. Like I said, 2024 is going to be a great year for just Calvin Michael releases. I'll say that. So I'm very excited about that. But it was called Pull Over So I Can Hit You. And it's based off of the podcast episode, Pull Over So I Can Hit You. So if you kind of just want a taste of what you think you're going to watch, you can listen to the podcast. But the short film is a reimagining of that same podcast episode. So, you know, we couldn't do a whole 45 minutes for a short film. So it's kind of taking that story, reimagining it, shifting some things around, changing names around, and sprucing it up and making it fit in a complete package where as a short film, it still feels complete and it doesn't feel like it's rushed. You still get everything you need in that time period. And that took a lot of work to get the script to be there. Like what I've learned, especially in film, is like you really have to just kind of redraw your script until it just makes sense, right? And so it's to the point where people should be excited to see it just reading the script. If your script is that strong, everything else kind of falls into place once you have everything set up with your pre-production and making sure you got the right people. There's so many moving parts. When we get further along and I can really talk about it more, I'd love to just like go in depth, but you know, I'm learning to not share too much too soon. So here's that. All right, I'm gonna call it a night. Oh, I did like Estelle's Lovers Rock album, Alan. That's a little too far. I even heard her the album from 2007. I really enjoyed that as well too. But I like that Estelle album because I like that song she had with Luke James. That was a fun one. Yes, Corey. Yo, Calvin, can you talk about how Mariah Carey's Obsessed is back on the charts for 2024? Oh, I didn't even know. Okay. Good for her. I do like the cool thing with this era of streaming and everything is and even with TikTok, you see a lot of songs get second legs. Like I love that all the kids are obsessed with Keisha Cole's Love, right? Some of that's TikTok, some of that is their mamas and dads were playing that when they were cleaning the house, but a lot of that is TikTok. I think that is so cool, right? You see a lot of songs get a second set of legs, right? Which I absolutely love, right? And I'm going to close on this comment. Alan said, I will be releasing new music this year, which is really great. Y'all know Alan is one of our long time subscribers. Also, Lindsay, Lenci, she follows this channel a lot too. She also has a project coming out. I forgot what it is. Actually, you know what? Let me see. She just shot me a message the other day. I'll shout her out with that too, because she definitely has really spent a lot of time working on her craft, right? She's been doing music for some few years. One time she came to town, me and her chopped it up. It was really, really cool. We just talked about music and stuff. She has a project called, let me click this thing and see what it says here. The single is called Ooh, We Are Here, Made It. My First Love single, available now, streaming on all platforms. I guess the song is called My First Love. But her spelling again, Lenci. She has a song I really enjoyed called what, something with water. I play it all the time. It's like You're Just Like Water. It's a really nice song. I've shouted it up before. Let me pull it up, and then I'm gonna go to bed for real this time. Okay, so Lindsay's song is called My First Love, but she has a song I've always liked called Song of Water that I thought just was such a nice song. Sometimes people have a song that just has these really nice lyrics, and because the production is not overbearing, it allows you to focus on the lyrics and the inflections and the voice and the emotion with how the song is delivered. So Lindsay, that is your shout out. You do a great job with what it is you do. So shout out to you. And so I'm going to call it a night, guys. This is really, really cool. Thank y'all for rocking with me. Listen, this live almost did not happen. I was 30 minutes away from saying I'm going to push it back to tomorrow because I'm sleepy, but we made it. So good job, y'all. We did it. All right. Anyway, I'm out. Stay safe. Stay sane. Like I said, mind your business so that you can age well. And I'm out. See you next time.